All great things must start somewhere. Hi, I'm Nick, and this is Required Reading here on Retro Games with Nick. So for our next issue of Required Reading, in fact for the next couple of issues of Required Reading, we're gonna shift time periods. We're gonna go into the fall of 1997, and we're gonna look at two number ones. This time, or possibly over two episodes if necessary, we're going to look at the first issue of PSM, 100% Independent PlayStation Magazine. Published by Imagine, whom you might know for being the owners of IGN, the Imagine Games Network. And then once we're done with this issue, and we've played through the games that were in this issue in our 60 Minutes to Sway feature, then we're going to move on to the official PlayStation Magazine issue number 1. I decided to look at both of these because, I'm interested in not just PC gaming, though retro PC gaming is a big part of why I started the channel in the first place, but like I said in the last episode of 60 Minutes to Sway, the original PlayStation is a bit of a blind spot for me. I've played Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. But for example, I just started playing Suikoden for the first time. I'm a big fan of course, Crash Bandicoot. But even Spyro, I've only tried for the first time a couple years ago when the remastered collection came out. So I'm still working my way through some of the backlog of the PlayStation. So you might ask, why not start at the very first issue of a magazine covering PlayStation? Because as you can see from the fact that Final Fantasy VII is here, which was not a launch title, the PlayStation actually launched about 2 years before in the US. But unfortunately, the availability of magazines before this time is pretty spotty. And even from this time onwards, we're good for like 20 to 30 issues, but then there's again a couple of blank spots and missing scans in the archive at either Retromax or at the Internet Video Game, the Video Game History Foundation. Sorry, that's what it's called. So I couldn't actually find a scan of the very first number of PSX magazine, which is the magazine that would turn into the official PlayStation magazine. So I decided that maybe the number 1 of PSM was a more significant starting point for this whole thing. It also means that there's like a ton of reviews inside, just because they're trying to kind of like catch up the games that they've missed over the past 2 years. So then why look at both PSM and the official PlayStation magazine, you might ask? Well, the obvious reason is that PSM was the more popular PlayStation 1 magazine, at least as far as I know. Whereas official PlayStation magazine US had a demo disc. And demo discs are something that we really like here on Retro Games with Nick. I will say, again, I'm not American, I'm Italian, and where I grew up there was sort of the same dichotomy with PlayStation magazine, PSM, which was 100% independent, but then the official PlayStation magazine on the other side, who had a demo disc. I seem to recall PSM being more fun to read, but I wouldn't really be able to vouch the quality of either of those. And keep in mind, those are Italian magazines, so they have completely different editorial staff and all of this. From what I could read, from what I could gather from the internet, the first 10 issues or so of PSM tend to skew a little younger, because video games were still kind of a kids thing at this time, and the PlayStation is really the one that brought the idea of the mature console gamer, with mature themes and all that. So we might have a bit of a cringy writing in the first few issues, but we're gonna power through it. All right, after this preamble, let's get into it. You can actually hear your pupils dilate. Final Fantasy VII. Never underestimate the power of PlayStation. And then for Jersey Devil, which I think people like. I've never actually played it. When they review, if they review it, we'll check it out, I guess. An ad from Machine Hunter, who looks like a 360-degree shooter, kind of like dual stick shooter, what it would be these days. A little different now. It's about time. Woo! What a month. Between my trip to E3 and putting together the first issue, I've hardly had time to catch my breath. Now, as I sit here finishing off this last page, I'm looking over the rest of the magazine spread out before me, and I've realized something of profound importance. I need sleep. Bad. That and the fact that this mag is absolutely going to rock. Some of you may know me from the years that I worked on Ultra Game Players. I had a lot of fun working on that book, and I've always been proud of the things we were able to accomplish. But let me tell you, I've never been as excited as I am right now about PSM and about the PlayStation. When I was first offered the job, I was elated because of all the coming games I wanted to work with were on PlayStation. When you've got titles like Resident Evil 2, Tomb Raider 2, Metal Gear Solid, and Crash 2 to look forward to, it's pure joy driving into work each morning. Now is a great time to be into video games, and it's the best time to be a PlayStation fan. The best thing about this magazine is that it's 100% pure PlayStation. That means more than just tossing out the Nintendo and Saturn reviews, it's a state of mind. PSM is written only for hardcore PlayStation fanatics, in a way that is directed exclusively to you. And don't worry, we're completely unofficial. You won't miss out on anything that Sony may not want you to see, and will always be completely unbiased. So enough talk already, I'm going home to bed. Enjoy the issue and be sure to drop us a line with your comments. I want this to be a real reader's mag, and it only works when you participate. See you soon. Chris Slade, editor. The PSM team, Chris Slade, in a different picture that looks so much worse. Most hated game, The Crow City of Angels. Stephen Frost, most hated game, AD&D, Iron and Blood. Noah Messi, most hated game, Lemmings 3D. Bill Paris, most hated game, Metal Jacket, Japan. I wonder, is this... No, I'm thinking of a different person. This is a Fighting Force ad. Oh, I had a elementary school friend who had a PlayStation modded, of course, but who had Fighting Force, and I was always so jealous of this game. God, I hope they review it soon. Alright, what do we have? We have a 16-page special, every PlayStation code. Pure cheaters heaven. Know your PlayStation. Think you know all there is to know about your system? Then check out our expensive report on everything PlayStation and prepare to be surprised. Felony 1179, the Getaway Driver's Handbook. With our escape maps and pro advice, the cops will never get their hands on you. Ace Combat 2, the skills to make you an ace. Before you're ready for the real thing, you gotta go to school. Final Fantasy VII, 10-page guide. The biggest PlayStation game of the year is finally out, and we've got all the expert info you need to get you started on the adventure. Be warned though, our strategy is so complete, you'll only want to peek at it when you're really stuck. You may spoil the game for yourself. That probably didn't need the edgy voice, but I thought they were going in a slightly different direction. There is the top 25 PlayStation games of all time feature, to again kind of catch up to this being number 1 of the mag, but the system being out for 2 years. Yeah, let's go ahead and start reading. Monitor, your complete source for all the latest in PlayStation news, topics, and 32-bit culture. These days, daily news is only a click away on the internet, but what you can get online is PSM's exclusive in-depth coverage with more details and extra info. We dig deep to find the real story behind the headlines. E3, PlayStation kills the competition. At the E3 show, PlayStation thrashed the competition with an unbeatable lineup of games. If you're a hardcore gamer, then there's no better place to be than the annual Electronic Entertainment Expo, E3 to those in the know. It was held in Atlanta this year for the first time, from June 19th through the 20th. E3 is like dying and going to video game heaven. The seemingly endless show floor is packed with outrageous booths from every game company, each with its fair number of obligatory video game babes. Oh lord, the late 90s were a time, huh? Anyone is there, from top video game designers to film and sports celebrities. The drinks are free, the parties are wild, and best of all, you get to play countless new games months before they hit the stores. Since the average consumer isn't allowed in, we here at PSM took it upon ourselves to go to the show, play the games, go to all the parties, and meet the models. Just so we could come back and tell you, our beloved readers, about everything that went on. Okay, so we're full of crap. They had to drag us back to the office. Sorry, Nintendo. The day before the show began, Nintendo held its traditional pre-E3 press conference, and we here at PSM decided to stop by and scope out PlayStation main competition. Friends, it wasn't pretty. For about 2 hours, we had to sit through the status presentation. I kind of need to stop going with the edgy voice, because I think otherwise I'm going to read like 50% of the magazine in that voice. I'll try to save it for like the really outrageous, sexist comments kind of thing. Let's do that. Where is it? For about 2 hours, we had to sit through the saddest presentation ever. First off, Nintendo executives kept tossing out sales number, pie charts, and fancy graphs in an attempt to show how successful they were last year. But in every single one of their presentations, they added in PlayStation sales numbers to pad the stats and hide their own figures. They kept talking about the success of the next generation platforms to make Nintendo 64 look good. They knew if they were to talk strictly Nintendo 64, it would become apparent that PlayStation was giving them a royal butt kicking. I mean, we here at PSN don't have anything against Nintendo personally. It's put out some great games in the past. Let's just say that right now, we're really glad we bought PlayStations. Sony's best ever lineup of first-party games. Now that we've gotten the ugly stuff out of the way, let's talk about where the real action was. Sony's booth, of course. Within the boundaries of Sony's incredible, huge PlayStation area, were undoubtedly the hottest games of the show. Playable versions of the US Final Fantasy VII and Parappa the Rapper were shown for the first time, and there were big crowds pleasers for the durations of the show. Brand new titles like Crash 2 and Blasto were also shown off in spectacular fashion, each one displayed in its own specially themed area of Sony's booth. A quick jog upstairs led to Sony's Sports Bar, where you could grab a drink and check out the 98 versions of NFL Game Day 98, NHL Face Off, and MLB 98. Finally, the entire area was covered with rows of other playable games. These included big-name titles like Jet Moto 2, as well as unheard-of new games like Exodus, Sony's new action mech game. Sony's booth also features some prominent third-party titles, but let's save those for the following section, which is literally one row below, but okay. The most and strongest third-party titles. While Nintendo and Sega both suffered miserably from a third-party drought, nearly every publisher at the show had something new on display for PlayStation. More than ever, the better games were Sony exclusives. Eidos, for example, has decided that it just isn't worth it to put Tomb Raider 2 out on the Saturn. Also, previous Nintendo exclusive series like Capcom's Mega Man and Konami's Metal Gear and Castlevania have all defected to PlayStation. Finally, the few games previously thought to be exclusive to other systems, such as Capcom's Street Fighter vs. X-Men, are for the most part coming to PlayStation after all. The best of the best. Tons of great PlayStation games were on display, but we managed to narrow the list down to our top 6 picks. Final Fantasy VII. Even though most people had already played the Japanese version, Final Fantasy VII still commanded the most respect among the press and buyers alike. Metal Gear Solid. Even though this game was unplayable, the videotape footage freaking knocked us silly. Could this be the 1998 Game of the Year? Tomb Raider 2. More puzzles, more moves, more weapons, more Lara. Any questions? Plus, Eidos had a small army of mega hot models at its booth. Resident Evil 2. We've got to get our hands on a shotgun and kill some zombies. Like Metal Gear, there wasn't a playable copy, but a videotape ruled. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. We really can't stress enough how amazingly good this game is. If you don't believe us, check back next issue for the full story. Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. The first Crash was good, but the sequel rocks. We couldn't put it down at Sony's big E3 party, even with Soul Asylum come out to play. Sony's dominance by the numbers. Sony released the latest PlayStation sales figures just before the E3 show. Although everyone here at PSM knew the PlayStation was king, even we were surprised by the system's complete and utter dominance of the market. Below you find the more interesting facts and figures included in Sony's statement. If you're into Nintendo 64, you might want to skip to the next page. If you got a Saturn, we suggest you leave the room. They've shipped 7.5 million in PlayStations in Japan, 4.8 in America, 3.8 in Europe, and 16 worldwide. And this was as of June 1st, 97. 114 million of sold per unit worldwide. PlayStation software to hardware ratio of 5:1, so that's what we would call attach rate today. Cheaper than the Nintendo 64. You know what was really cheaper? Because you could just rent the game, copy it, and have the best of times. Notes. Here are a few notes of interest, including the latest up-to-minute information on everything PlayStation. Even with the strong sales of Turok on Nintendo 64, Acclaim has reported losses of over 20 million in its third quarter. While downsizing the company may help out a little, Acclaim will still need to have an extremely successful fourth quarter to get things back on track. Rumors have been circulating that Konami will only be bringing 30,000 copies of Castlevania Symphony of the Night to the US. The company, however, has denied such rumors and has promised there will be more than enough copies to go around. So, I guess that's reporting on a rumor and Konami denying it immediately. I don't see how that makes sense, but... While E3 was considered a great success by many industry insiders, numbers reveal something different altogether. This year's attendance was a whopping 35% lower than last year's show, with only 37,100 people attending. Who was the idiot that decided to move the show out of LA anyway? In an effort to protect the shelf life of the latest racing game, Psygnosis has renamed its Formula 1 97 to a more casual Formula 1 Championship Edition. Look for other companies to drop the year's date in the game titles as well. No one wants an expiration date on their games. Unless you're EA and get to sell Madden to people every year because of the updated rosters. Final Fantasy VII will not be censored, as most gamers may have thought. Sony has preferred to keep the game true to the Japanese original, which will cause it to have a teen rating. Yahoo! I don't know why I did the Mario voice there. The new PlayStation model has been released with smaller board and no composite jacks in Sony's latest attempt to curb production costs. We're going to skip the peripheral reviews, that's fine. What's up with PlayStation 2? Everyone wants to know, when will Sony decide to upgrade? A lot of rumors have been circulating recently about a possible new PlayStation console. While Sony has denied its existence, the so-called PlayStation 2 is still getting a lot of attention from both gamers and the media. Since no concrete information has been released yet, we thought we would come up with a few things that Sony should definitely address in its next generation system. The first, of course, is the CPU. A Lip2 64-bit processor would allow for faster and computational abilities and rendering speeds. Backgrounds and characters could be displayed more swiftly and at a much more higher resolution. Add that to a separate powerful graphics processor, hopefully 3D FX based, and you've got the perfect match for a killer system. Next comes memory, which is one of the greater problems with the current PlayStation. With only 2 megabytes to work with, designers are limited to how many textures and animation frames they can load at a time. If this amount was increased to say 8 megabytes or more, games such as Tomb Raider would be able to have even more varying and high-resolution texture. Companies like Capcom would also be able to leave a lot more frames in when porting over their latest fighting game. Since Sony is having such a great success with CD-ROMs, there is no point in not continuing to use them. The double-speed drive of the current model will certainly have to be upgraded, possibly by a quad-speed model. If Sony's smart, they'll try to get the fastest drive possible. An 8X model would do wonders for loading times, and it would let larger amounts of game data be transmitted on the fly. If the size of the CD-ROM buffer can be increased as well, then now loading screens would definitely become a thing of the past. Keep dreaming, bud. It's exciting to think what games will be possible on the new system, but it will be a while before we actually see any of them. Gamers shouldn't worry though, the current system still has a lot of untapped potential in it. With games like Metal Gear Solid 2 and Resident Evil 2 coming out in the coming year, the PlayStation should still be able to continue to surprise us gamers. And with over 16 million units already shipped, Sony's certainly not going to abandon its 32-bit nest egg. When it does finally decide to release a new system, we're sure gamers will be overjoyed. But don't look for that to happen until at least Christmas '98. Add 2 years to that, I'm pretty sure. I think 2000 is when PlayStation 2 came out. Let me do a quick Google. PlayStation 2, yeah, it was released in 2000. March 2000 in Japan. 26 October 2000 in North America, and 24 November 2000 in Europe. Interestingly, it was not released in India, I assume this is, yeah, until August 2003. And the original PS2 price would be approximately $550 in 2024 money. They did get 32 megabytes of RAM. And of course, they also got, a DVD player. Room for improvement. Since graphics are the first thing you notice in a game, Sony's next console must definitely have the capacity to handle a large number of polygons and high resolution textures. Powerful graphic chipset is a must as it helps to take a lot of the processing load off the CPU. While Sony has not released any information about what chipset it will be using, one possibility could be 3DFX. Very popular in the computer gaming world, 3DFX's Voodoo chipsets have taken has taken the graphics in PC games to a whole new level. It certainly should be able to do the same for the world of console games. Oh, you can see the difference between the PC and the PlayStation versions of Tomb Raider there. Notes continued. Anime fans can rejoice as popular Japanese game titles are planned to release in the US. Gundam, Battle Masters, Dragon Ball GT, and Ghost in the Shell should be coming over soon. Konami is currently trying to decide if its Gradius and Salamander Deluxe packs would sell well here in the US. If there is enough positive feedback, gamers may be able to buy both packs on one disc via the Konami website. The suggested price of $39.95 has been mentioned as well. If you think you would like to purchase this title, please send some email to Konami and there's a Konami email. That's fascinating. This must have been legit planned by Konami to be like, how many copies would we sell of this garbage? In its latest attempt to port over successful PC titles, Activision planned to bring Interstate 76 to PlayStation. However, the game may feature new characters and a wholly different style of gameplay. So they're not releasing Interstate 76, is what you're saying. Tokimeki Memorial, Konami's popular girlfriend simulator, will not be brought over to the US despite numerous rumors. Konami feels that there is simply no market for it here in the US. Interact plans to release a dual analog controller for the PlayStation in the near future. This is especially disheartening news for Sony, considering the Interact controller will beat Sony's to the market. Look for the controller to feature auto-fire, possibly even vibration feedback of some kind. Eidos has decided to postpone the release of its much-anticipated Ninja until the first quarter of '98. This was done to prevent the game from having to compete against Eidos' other hit game, Tomb Raider 2, this Christmas season. Originally slated only for the PC, Falcom has officially announced Ys 6 for the PlayStation. I don't think that ever came out. Ys 6. Yeah, it came out for PS2, right? Yeah. Ys 6 wouldn't have been out. They must be talking about a different game. Ys 6, the Ark of Napishtim, was the first release in English since Ys 3 in the early 1990s. So they have to be talking about this game, but it's still like 5 freaking years away. And Ys 5 only came out... I wonder what's the story behind the Ys 6 development. Do they have something in here about it? No. But yeah, I'm a little baffled by this, besides the misspelling of Ys, but, you know, this is a game that won't be out for like another... No, scratch that, another 6 years on the PS2. Why are we talking about it in October 1997? Makes no sense. An ad for Oddworld. I guess, okay, yeah. Just getting to the ad. Oddworld's Abe's Odyssey. September 19th, coming out. Resident Evil 2, when? What's the deal, anyway? Since its release in March of '96, the first Resident Evil has become one of the most popular and top-selling PlayStation games of all time. Its mix of horror, action, and top-notch graphics was just what the gamers were asking for. While Capcom hopes to hit gold for a second time with the eventual release of Resident Evil 2. Featuring even more chills and thrills, it has the potential to be one of the best games ever. Capcom is working hard on making the sequel better than the original in every way. Nicer graphics, longer and more balanced gameplay, and a larger variety of monsters are but of the few things, that are going to be improved. Capcom is also constantly finding new things to add, which is part of the reason the release date has slipped several times. Originally set for the Christmas season, the game has now been postponed until at least the first quarter of '98. Capcom is simply refusing to release it until it's perfect, which is a great thing for us gamers. We'll just have to be patient. In the meantime, a special version of the first game, Resident Evil Director's Cut, features 3 different versions of the original game plus a special surprise, a playable demo of Resident Evil 2, see page 23. It's an awesome collection and will certainly help to tide gamers over until they can get their hands on RE2 next year. Net Yaroze Update, your monthly source for the latest Yaroze news and reviews. Released early this year, the Net Yaroze is Sony's attempt at bringing console programming to a broader audience. Basically a low-level development system, the $750 Net Yaroze includes the necessary tools and software libraries that aspiring developers can use to create their own games. The only other necessary piece of equipment is a PC or a PowerPC Macintosh, which is used for the storing of the actual game code. Knowledge of the C, C++ languages is also crucial. Each month we will go behind the scenes to provide the latest info about the Yaroze, as well as showcasing the latest games being developed. Surprisingly, quite a number of programmers have already produced game demos of extremely high quality. This month we spotlight one such example. Terra Incognita by Team Fatal, origin Japan. One of the first 3D adventure games developed for the Net Yaroze, Terra Incognita combines some of the quest-style elements found in RPGs with established platform-style gameplay. Multi-level backgrounds, such as those found in Vandal Hearts, will deter gamers as they try to find a missing treasure within an allotted time limit. Talk about pressure. Each area in the game is a particular challenge that must be solved to progress onward. This may require something as easy as successfully jumping onto a moving platform, or something a little harder, such as positioning crates in order to reach a certain path. Aside from standard abilities like jumping and sword attacks, the main character can pick up items such as bombs and use them to destroy obstacles. Unfortunately, there is only a limited number of items to be found, so using them correctly becomes one of the game's key strategies. It's interesting to note that while Terra Incognita is pretty impressive, it's still only an early title for the Yaroze system. Given enough time, we could be seeing titles that closely resemble this created professionally. To find out more information about the Yaroze and download the latest game demos, check out these useful websites. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I did not know that there was this sort of basically indie development PlayStation that you could buy for a certain price. It's cool that they're talking about it. Gossip. You want more than just the latest headlines. You want the dirt, the inside scoop of what's really going on with the PlayStation. Well, look no further, because PSM always has its ear to the wall. No buzz for US pads. Sony's new dual analog control pad is slated for release in the US this September, but with one extremely important difference: no vibration feedback. The new control pad, as it was released in Japan, offers feedback capabilities for nearly every new game. Supposedly, Sony had to remove this feature in the US because another company owns the patent to the technology. However, other rumors speculate that problems arise with the pads after extended use. Supposedly, the vibration, however slight, eventually caused the controller to break. As of yet, Sony has not commented on the issue. I mean, I think for sure I had the DualShock, so I assume they figured it out. PS Unreal revived. Epic Mega Games' Unreal is, by the way, Epic Mega Games is Epic Games Today. That's what they were called at the time. Is the groundbreaking new PC shooter that's giving ID's Quake a run for his money. The game's arrival on the Nintendo 64 has already been confirmed, and rumored has that Epic has done some early tests to see if it can work on PlayStation. Unreal never came to the Nintendo 64. After several weeks of testing, the team at Epic and DMA Designs, who is doing the actual conversion, decided the PlayStation would have significant difficulty with Unreal due to the machine's lack of RAM, and so the issue was considered closed, or so it was thought. The information from sources close to the project have indicated that another attempt is in the works at DMA's Scotland-based offices. Exactly what may have been sacrificed in translation is unknown, and no one knows if DMA is having any more success this time around. Some rumors have pointed to more simplistic geometry and potential smaller levels, but nothing has been confirmed as of yet. At press time, Epic could not comment on the matter. Never came out. Lunar on PlayStation? Following a rift with a longtime ally Sega, Working Designs may now bring the highly successful Lunar series over to the PlayStation. Reportedly, the problems between Sega and Working Designs began with numerous conflicts between management of both companies. Things reached a boiling point when Sega told Working Designs that it didn't have room for them in its E3 booth, where Working Design has bought space for the last several years. Working Designs brought the matter to the attention of Sega of Japan, with whom it has good relations, who then forced Sega of America to let them in. However, the space was stuck far in the back where most showgoers rarely went. Since that time, Working Designs president Victor Ireland has been outspoken in his criticism of Sega of America management, while at the same time hinting that Working Designs' key franchises are likely to end up on a rival platform. Ireland has gone so far as to say that after current Saturn projects are complete, there will be no future Saturn titles, lending further credence to the rumor. Working Designs definitely sort of became a PlayStation developer at some point. It did one more. It did Magic Knight Ray Earth. But after that, it was all PlayStation, baby. I don't think Lunar ever made it to the play. No, maybe it did. Yeah, Lunar Silver Star Story Complete was a PlayStation version of the game. So, two completely bunk rumors, but one was actually correct. Rumor Smasher, where we put false rumors to rest once and for all. No PlayStation C upgrade. The PlayStation C, Sony's rumored upgrade that it would allegedly provide additional RAM and a faster CD-ROM drive, is pure fiction started by some members of the press. Sony itself has staunchly denied that any such upgrade was ever in the works. Furthermore, every developer PSM has ever spoken to about the prospect of a PlayStation upgrade has scoffed the very thought, given the PlayStation's current design. Exploring a little deeper, massive technical hurdles would have to be overcome considering that the PlayStation is not really an upgradable machine. The proposed RAM expansion would somehow have to have a complete connection to the data bus, and none of the expansion ports, Link and Parallel, offer the required bandwidth. As for replacing the CD-ROM mechanism, Sony could hardly expect people to open their PlayStations, disconnect the power feed and data ribbon from the current drive, and then manually replace that unit with a newer, faster drive. Finally, the thought of Sony fragmenting its user base would only jeopardize its current market-leading position. So forget about it. My, how times change. These days, people are just installing their own hard drives on PS5s, and yes, we're definitely doing mid-generation upgrades. Lara doesn't do nude scenes. Shortly after the release of Tomb Raider, rumors hit the internet about a possible nude code. Many long hours were wasted as lovesick gamers tried anything and everything to coerce Lara out of her clothes. Doctor pictures even began appearing on the net, featuring Lara in nothing but her birthday suit. Core has long denied that any such codes exist, but the rumors just won't die. Trust us, guys. Sony would never let anything like this get past them. So once and for all, please believe us, there is no nude code. Sorry, people, but this skimpy Ida's promotional art is the most you'll ever get to see of Laura. Nihon Gemu o... I don't know how to read this kanji. At least I forgot how to read this kanji. Otaku. Oh, is that how you spell otaku? Loaded is news and notes from the Land of the Rising Sun, featuring our very own Bill Parr's son. Nihon Game... Oh, it was right here. Nihon Game Otaku. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna read that. Nihon Game Otaku Ran-e Yokuso. That's Japanese for Welcome to the Japanese Game Addict column. Here we'll be talking about the import scene for the PlayStation. I'll be giving you the dirt on the hottest games hitting Japan, and which ones will never hit US shores, with the exception of import stores. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Ikuze! After 2 years, Zero Divide 2 has been finished. It boasts 60 FPS motion and a wall that surrounds the ring, which you can climb and attack from. Also, there's a metal bar you can grab and flip around. A much improved hanging system lets you slide left or right while hanging and attack your opponent from the hanging position. 2 new characters are also featured, Pixel and Cancer. Gambare Morikawa Kun 2 is out now. In this game, you raise a type of creature, robot, called Pit, short for Pet in TV. You must teach it words and knowledge on how to survive just like a human baby. This is food, this is something you push, this is something you hit. Morikawa is a new concept compared to other virtual pet games because teaching manners is a priority. Using Final Fantasy VII-esque rendering, the mapping for Capcom's RPG Breath of Fire 3, tabs, dungeons, etc., is still such comments as realistic, you can freely move around, and you can change your viewpoint and take an extensive view. It's planned for a September 25th release. Causing a major stir in the Japanese press is Parasite Eve, an adventure horror RPG by Square. It's said to be a kind of fusion of Final Fantasy VII and Hollywood. It has a Final Fantasy VII style appearance, but appears to have improved upon it. The screen's point of view changes and shifts just like in a movie. It's slated to come out sometime this year, but no US release has been confirmed. Square's next game, Einhander, is a 2D side-scrolling shooter, but with a 3D appearance. The Endymion FRS Mark II pilot is equipped with something not standard for a regular fighter, an arm. Einhander is German for one arm. This arm is called the gun pod and you can use it to seize enemy weapons. No word yet on the release date, Japanese or American. Spotlight on Tobal 2. The 3D polygon fighting sequel to Tobal No. 1 will unfortunately not be coming to the US. This is a must-have import. Greatly enhanced graphics, the characters look like the guy in Dire Straits' Money for Nothing video. Additional special moves, better grappling, an improved quest mode, a greater variety of super moves, and a more distinct feel for individual characters puts Tobal 2 way beyond its predecessor. It runs in the PlayStation's high-resolution mode, and it's also analog compatible. The hot new quest mode is leaps and bounds better than Tobal 1. And while the first version had limited textures and only a small variety of enemies, Tobal 2 features over 100 opponents and more locales, such as deserts and temples. I've got my Japanese copy. Cho Atsui, super hot. Sony's new action RPG Alundra is burning up the charts in Japan. Set in a fantasy-type world, you must travel through the dungeon-laden Mount Tora in search of treasure and adventure, while fighting bosses and other monsters all along the way. Macross Digital Mission VFX was a game long awaited by Macross, Robotech in the US fans. The last Macross game I had the pleasure of playing was a 16-bit Gradius-like 2D side-scrolling shooter for the Super Famicom, Super NES. Needless to say, 32-bit technology and polygon texture mapping does not disappoint for the 3D shooter. Yes, your very tech can still transform into all 3 modes, Fighter, Gearwalk, and Battleoid. Various Varitechs are available from the original Skull Squadron VF1 to the VF22 Sturmvogel 2. Or I can say is, oh yeah! The Japanese get all the cool bonus stuff. One of the biggest differences between Japanese and US PlayStation games is that the Japanese versions come complete with full-color instruction manuals with cool illustrations, as opposed to the cheapo black and white ones we get here in the US. Also, the PlayStation discs themselves has much more money put into them over in Japan, as seen by the 4-color designs for Horn World, and Castlevania X. Kirei Janai. These 4-color CD designs and full-color illustrations are slowly catching on here in the US, starting with big games like Final Fantasy VII. There are still some things that only our friends in Nihon will enjoy, however. Besides the color instruction books, some games like Castlevania X have extra goodies, like a music CD, complete with nostalgic video game music from the classic Castlevania games, as well as an art book with original illustrations. Horned Owl even includes this sheet of stickers that feature the characters in other graphics. Hey Sony, we want more cool stuff over here. We just don't get it. There's a fundamental difference between Japanese and American PlayStation fans. While both American and Japanese players crave stuff that's cool, kakkui, the Japanese also have more of a preoccupation with anything kawaii or cute. Kawaii can range from the portable Gamera 2000 to the sugary sweet Doki Doki Pretty League. It is the latter type of kawaii that is near and dear to the Japanese player. You can spot these games a mile away, as they're usually permeated with large, starry-eyed anime girls in school uniforms who have either blue, green, purple, or red hair. These girls are even featured in genres of games normally targeted at boys, such as fighting games. One current example of this is the schoolgirl catfight game Asuka 120% Excellent Burning Fest. Also, simulation dating games seem to be reigning kawaii games of late, such as Tokimeki Memorial of Classmate 2. Tokimeki Memorial or Classmate 2. In Classmate 2, you play a schoolboy going through his daily routine of going to classes, playing sports, and trying to pick up chicks. With the exception of a pretty Sailor Moon, kawaii games don't seem to cut it stateside. So except for import shops, you won't be seeing these anytime soon. Jet peripherals. Sony Computer Entertainment's transparent memory card went on sale for a limited summer release on July 17th in Japan. Sales were limited to 300,000. They were priced the same as the regular memory card at about $17. Kanarazu kawanai to ikenai na. Once upon a time, I would have been able to translate this. But a grip controller from Hori lets you play RPGs with only one hand. Whatever, that's fine. And a convert. Oh, there is now a PlayStation converter that will let you attach a Sega Saturn or Super Nintendo controller to the PlayStation. This is especially handy for those who like to play Street Fighter with a Super Nintendo controller, but want to experience newer Street Fighter games like the upcoming Super Street Fighter 2 collection. Alright, so this is the thing I noticed about PSM. Is that the reviews are actually very underwhelming. And it's not just these. I guess I haven't checked like 20 numbers ahead. But you know, like reviews are 2 columns. And then when you get to previews, that's when you get like a full page with tons of like, you know, if I showed you this and I covered the title of the section, you would think that these would be the previews and those would be the reviews, but apparently not. I got curious and actually looked at number, I think it was 29. So, you know, like 2.5 years later. And yeah, this still hasn't really changed. They've added some more graphics at the bottom. Instead of saying, you know, graphics are heavenly, the music is classic, etc. They have like scores for those as well, and you know, more graphics of the sort. But yeah, like seems like reviews at PSM are gonna be like a couple columns every time. That's just what it is. The PSM rating scale. We here at PSM want you to know we take our reviews very seriously. Just like you, we've been burned before by bad games, and these days it ain't so easy to get the store to take them back. So when we sit down to review a new title, we look at it like this. If we just shelled out 50 or so hard-earned bucks for the game, how satisfied would we be? To summarize a game's overall worth, we use the traditional 5-star rating scale. If we give a game a full 5 stars, it's our guarantee you can't go wrong with it, so go out there and pick it up. What do ratings mean? 5. A PlayStation classic that no fan should be without. A can't-miss game no matter who you are. 4. A real well-done game. If you're a fan of the genre, you should definitely check this one out. 3. A pretty good game. It has its share of rough spots, but some redeeming qualities as well. 2. Maybe worth a quick look if you're a diehard fan of the genre or license. Otherwise, don't bother. 1. Don't even make eye contact with this one. It's not worth a second of your time. Alright, first review is, of course, Final Fantasy VII. Why? Because this was PlayStation in the late 1997, so you had to put Final Fantasy VII on the cover to draw people's attention. When starting Final Fantasy VII, Square was certainly under a lot of pressure. After all, the Final Fantasy series has always been immensely popular, and gamers have expected each release to be larger and more innovative than its predecessor. Luckily, Square has pulled it off again. Final Fantasy VII is easily the largest and most innovative RPG ever created. The story revolves around Cloud Strife, an ex-soldier living in the town of Midgar. Controlling the town and the rest of the world is the Shinra Corporation, which also happens to be Cloud's former employer. After finding out that Shinra has been ruthlessly draining the planet of its energy, Cloud decides to assist a rebel group called Avalanche in stopping it. Hundreds of beautifully rendered backgrounds were created for the game, and they give each locale an eerie sense of realism. Mostly a mixture of low-tech and futuristic building designs, the architecture of Final Fantasy is unique, at the very least. Each town has its share of residents that the game's character interact with. Some will aid Cloud, while others will attempt to stop him. The game interface to Final Fantasy VII will be very familiar to fans of the series. Attacks and spells are executed in the standard manner, as are items. A time meter is featured that, when filled up, allows the characters to attack. This provides a nice alternative to standard turn-based fighting systems in most RPGs. The Relics idea of Final Fantasy IV, that's the type of Final Fantasy VI, has been retained as well, The Relics idea of Final Fantasy VI has been retained as well it's been improved upon. Yeah, that sentence still doesn't make sense. Well, the point is, they still have relics and have improved on them. Now called materia orbs, they provide various enhancements and abilities for characters. Numerous orbs are scattered throughout the game, so an important strategy is knowing which orb to use at a particular time. New to the series is a limit bar, which increases every time your character gets hit during battle. When full, your character can perform a more powerful special attack on the enemy. The Final Fantasy series has always pushed the limitations of the various consoles that it has graced, and Final Fantasy VII is no exception. By using the 32-bit technology to its fullest, Square has created an experience nothing short of cinematic. Swooping cameras, beautiful backgrounds, and a riveting storyline propelled the gamer into another world that seems so real. The only real dent in the armor is the lack of Red Book audio soundtrack. Basically, all of the game's music is played through the PlayStation's MIDI chip. While adequate, this doesn't seem to do the game justice. Regardless, with over 50 hours of gameplay spanned over 3 discs, the latest installment of the series is certainly the best. It definitely deserves to have a place of honor in every PlayStation owner's collection. The graphics are heavenly. The music is classic Final Fantasy VII orchestra. What the fuck does that even mean? The music is classic Final Fantasy VII orchestra. Good? Bad? How is that a judgment? The concept redefines RPG, outplayed for months with no sleep. PSM final score 5. The standard setting game no gamer should miss. Felony 1179. Published by ASCII, developed by Climax. ASCII's latest software entry into the PlayStation library is a driving game with a significant twist. In Felony 1179, you must commit a crime in your car and then flee the scene by any means necessary. Since you are the criminal, other cars, roadblocks, and pedestrians are just minor obstacles, but they're yet targets, that can either be avoided or plowed straight through. In fact, you get extra money for taking these hindrances out. You start the game with 4 different cars, an additional 18 vehicles are hidden in the game. Each mode of transport has its own unique control dynamics and strategy, which are pretty realistic. The Vespa is great for avoiding obstacles, but is very slow. Conversely, the truck is powerful and cumbersome, with the inability to make tight turns. Graphically, the 3 courses are varied and interesting, closest you can actually get to actual cities in any game to date. In each stage, you have a goal and a final overall destination. However, you can take multiple paths to get there. This is where a lot of the real fun happens. For example, you'll have to think quick and choose a new path on the fly when you get cornered by the traffic jam ahead of you. Another first. Perhaps you'll decide to crash straight through the country club. The one area the game comes up short is replay value. Once you beat all 3 courses, there is really no reason to come back. All the hidden cars were added to combat this problem. Although they alleviated to some degree, you are still left with just the same 3 areas to terrorize, which can only be fun so many times. Felony is one of those games you can finish in a weekend, leaving you wishing for Felony 2, but it's still a worthy title for your library. One thing's for certain, it's a welcome change from standard race your car around against others gameplay. The graphics are very realistic, the music is heavy fluff rock, the concept is the best thing about it. I'll play a lot the first week. PSM final score 3. A good game, but it could have been great with more tracks. Disney's Hercules. While Hercules is not the first 32-bit Disney game, that would be Pocahontas, it is the first to be released here in the US. You, of course, take the role of the heroic Hercules. You must guide him on a quest to rid the world of the nefarious Hades. Through 10 lengthy levels, gamers have to face off against numerous minions like the giant Cyclops and the multi-headed Hydra. To separate this game from the myriad of side-scrollers out there, Disney has incorporated some interesting features. Levels were designed with the Z-axis in mind, so Hercules can travel in and out of the screen. This provides a nice sense of depth to various backgrounds. New character dialogue and musical scores have been added. Characters are extremely detailed and move with a lifelike fluidity. This is due to the large number of animation frames used. Over 10,000 were hand-drawn for the game, so it almost looks as good as the movie. Needless to say, Hercules is very fun to play. The simple controls and balanced gameplay are refreshing and let gamers of all ages jump right into the action. Unfortunately, this is also a weak point. Hardcore gamers won't find much replay value. Even with the 3 levels of difficulty, the game doesn't provide much of a long-term challenge. However, fans of the 16-bit Disney games like Sega's Aladdin and Virgin's Lion King will still want to check Hercules out. Looks like a Disney movie come to life, sounds like a Disney movie, the concept is old but still fun, I'll play it until I beat it. PSM final score 3, an oldie but a goodie for platform fans, but a bit too easy. Resident Evil Director's Cut. Publisher Capcom, developer Capcom. The PlayStation's most popular game returns home and it's better than ever. Now uncut and enhanced, Resident Evil Director's Cut features such extras as new cutscenes, alternate character costumes, and a new monster. The first disc contains the original US version, the Japanese version, which was a bit easier, and the special Director's Cut. This provides the gamer with 3 different difficulty levels and certainly increases the compilation's replay value. As with the original game, gamers can control either Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield. Both are members of STARS, Special Tactics and Rescue Squad, who have been assigned to investigate a teammate's helicopter crash. Upon finding the crash site, you're chased into a foreboding mansion full of zombies, giant spiders, and other gruesome horrors. Using your brain and whatever weapons you can find, you'll have to fight hard for your survival. However, the most exciting aspect of this compilation isn't really the game itself, but the awesome Resident Evil 2 demo included on the second disc. While it's only a hint of what's to come, the demo does provide Resident Evil fans with a sneak peek at what is easily one of the most anticipated titles of the upcoming year. Gamers looking for a completely new experience may be a bit disappointed, but if you love Resident Evil as much as we do, then the game definitely belongs in your collection. There are certainly enough extras to warrant a second look, and you know you can't resist the RA2 demo. The graphics still look great, the music is downright spooky, the concept is cool for fans. I'll play it until I see all the extras. PSM final score 5, a fun plus for fans until part 2 finally comes out. Ace Combat. Most jet fighting games for the PlayStation have been pretty disappointing, with the original Air Combat and Bogey Dead 6 being the only exceptions. Thanks to Namco and its stellar Ace Combat 2, this is Ace Combat 2, not Ace Combat 1. That's a pretty bad typo. How did they not see it? Did they list it? No. Also, this is it, by the way. These 2 pages are all the reviews for this particular issue, which is, again, mind-boggling. This is the best jet fighting game to grace the PlayStation yet, with more than 20 missions that will have you flying over every kind of terrain possible, all stunningly beautiful. The polygon count for each of the planes is highest than any flying game available. The air brakes and flaps actually move when you maneuver. The selection of aircraft you can fly is also the widest of any other game in the genre. The controls and the physics, which are keys to any good flying game, are both incredible and accurate. The control stick is analog with default configuration for the Sony analog dual joystick, analog gamepad, and the neck con. This alone would be enough to put Air Combat 2 way above the competition, but it doesn't stop there. All the missions are challenging because of the sophisticated enemy artificial intelligence. The mission variety really makes this a benchmark game. With air and ground targets to tackle, strategy comes into play much more than any of the other flight sims. The only downside is that you can only land your bird at the end of a small percentage of the mission, and you never get to take off. Still, Ace Combat 2 has plenty going for it to get us through the next flying game dry spell. Namco has taken air warfare to the next level. The graphics are flawless, the music isn't really important. The music isn't really important. Okay. The concept is very well executed, outplayed for weeks. PSM final score 5, the best flight combat game on the PlayStation. Period. Machine Hunter. Machine Hunter would be a classic game if it wasn't for one thing. It's already been done, and it was called Loaded. Eurocom obviously spent a lot of time playing the latter. Both games have the same overhead perspective, lighting effects, and general purpose. If Reloaded hadn't ever been released, Machine Hunter could have been its unofficial sequel. However, this doesn't mean Machine Hunter isn't a good game. It's well designed with sprawling maze-like levels and plenty of tough adversaries. The mining planet has been taken over by some evil aliens, and it is your job to get inside, rescue the hostages, and eradicate the infesting vermin. The game controls well with a Robotron-like firing system. Each button shoots in a specific direction no matter where you're standing. While this takes some getting used to, it ultimately becomes intuitive. To aid your mission, you've been given the power to take over any machine you destroy, hence the name. Once you simulate the machine, you get to use it, and each one controls a little bit differently. Machine Hunter has one-upped Loaded in level design. Hunter Wesley chose to go for multi-tiered levels, giving the game an added dimension of gameplay. Not only do you have to find specific items, you have to figure out how to get to that other area. The game is good and bloody, and like Loaded, leaves footprints from the spilled blood of your enemies. Even the machines leave little blood tracks. The techno soundtrack adds to the game nicely, pushing you along. Once players get the hang of the game's fast pace and rhythms, it does become mildly addictive, and let's be honest, you have to love this much pure violence. In the end, Machine Hunter is just loaded with a few extras. If you've got one, you don't really need the other, but they're both pretty good. Looks like Loaded. Sounds like industrial techno for psychos. The concept used to be called Loaded. I'll play it for a while, actually. PSM final score 4. If you crave action, get it, unless you're tired of Loaded. Namco Museum Volume 4. Number 4 in the Namco collection has been criticized for the weak nature of the games it includes, but frankly, this disc features 2 of the strongest titles in Namco's library, Pac-Land and Assault. In many ways, Pac-Land was the granddaddy of the modern platform game. Just take one look at this game and tell me you haven't seen it a zillion times before. Only when Pac-Land first came out, those other games didn't exist. Zooming through ghost-infested, platform-filled levels is made all the more hazardous by the constant tapping motion required to make Pac-Man run. Hey, it's no crash beater, but it was state-of-the-art back in the day. It also features more hidden cheats than any game of its kind, just straight jumping at the last second before you cross the goal line. Assault is even better. A classic shoot-'em-up set on a series of asteroids, you use the minimal gravity of to your advantage as you launch bombing and strafing runs on alien opponents. The game is best played using the dual analog stick, making it easy to keep track as the screen scales and rotates. The game's graphics are still impressive today when you consider how old they are. As for the rest of the disc, it's more of a stroll down memory lane for trivia and retro buffs, rather than a fun gaming experience. There's Genpei Tomaden, a side-scrolling beat-em-up in the Ninja Gaiden mold. Perhaps even less interesting is Return of Ishtar, a huge but ultimately dull action RPG they used to call maze games. The strength of the first two titles more than makes up for these slight deficiencies. Namco Museum Volume 4 is a good value and good fun. That is, if you're old enough to have been around back when these games were big in the first place. Looks like you made the games yourselves. Sounds like bink bonk. The concepts were new back then. I'll play it just to remember. PSM final score, 2. Pac-Land alone might be worth it, but just barely. Super Street Fighter Collection. Most every year, Capcom ports over its latest Street Fighter game, each featuring newer characters and even more impressive-looking special moves. While most gamers expected the next release to be a conversion of Street Fighter EX or even Street Fighter 3, Capcom has surprised everyone and gone retro. Super Street Fighter Collection is a 2-CD set featuring the classic Super Street Fighter 2 and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo games. Also included is Street Fighter Alpha 2 Gold, which never made it to the US. While the Super games don't feature as many special moves or innovations, like custom combos, as their Alpha counterparts, they are often still considered the best of the series. Perhaps it's the back-to-basics gameplay and simplistic combos controls that fans prefer. As with most of Capcom sports, the collection is arcade perfect. Control is flawless and special moves come off without a thought. This is easily the best playing Street Fighter port yet. It is unfortunate, however, that Capcom was not able to include any additional features with this collection. A practice mode would have been appreciated, as would have a group battle mode. With games such as Tekken 2 and Soul Blade brimming with extra new options, gamers now expect more than just a coin op. Still, the Super Street Fighter Collection is still sure to please fans. By including 3 games, Capcom is giving its fans their money's worth, and it should help pass the time until the next new Street Fighter game heads home to PlayStation. Sure, you can! The graphics still look good, the music brings back the days, the concept at its purest. I'll play it as much as I did the first time. PSM final score, 5. They're all games, but still great for fans of the series. NHL Power Play 98. Just over a year ago, the Vancouver-based developers at Radical Entertainment unveiled a game that forever changed the future of video game hockey. Power Play was the first hockey games to use polygons, a smart camera, real hockey artificial intelligence, and detailed strategy settings. This year, every other hockey game coming to the market has learned well and copied these same features. For Power Play 98, the developers have taken the bare-bones hockey engine of last year and added all the bells, whistles, and gameplay tweaks to make sure it stays one of the best sims available. Even more motion capture animation was taken for this year's game, which allows for new moves like dropping to block a shot and passing or shooting while stumbling from a check. The hockey AI is even better than last year, as the players react and play like the real deal. The most obvious when you set up power play in the opponent's zone, the way the players move around and attack the net is textbook hockey. Unfortunately, there are a couple of problems with Power Play 98. First of all, the action is just a little bit too slow for our taste. Secondly, even after you've played countless games, you still never really find a solid feel of control over shooting the puck. Still though, no other 32-bit hockey title has done any better in the entire category, which leaves Power Play 98 as the current #1 hockey game on the PlayStation. But the guys at Radical better not take it easy, because big guns like Sony and EA Sports are prepping their own big new hockey releases. It'll be very interesting to see if any newer hockey sims will have what it takes to knock Power Play off the top and be the best. Either way, hockey fans are going to enjoy PP98 for its depth. PP98. Sorry, I'm 6 years old apparently. Power Play 98 for its depth and its play. If you enjoyed the first one, you ain't seen nothing yet. The graphics are extremely fluid, the music isn't really applicable, the concept keeps getting better, I'll play it all season long. PSM final score, 3.5. For its second consecutive year, Power Play is king. Let me quickly check what else Radical Entertainment has made. Let's see. Just making sure they are actually the same people. Also, I actually made the Wins World game from 1993 and Mario's Time Machine. Ooh. Yeah, they are the power play people. And then they mostly did sports for a while. Dark Summit was theirs for GameCube and PS2. Simpsons Road Rage was theirs. Simpsons Hit and Run was made by them, which is very nice. They also did the CSI series for Ubisoft. Oh man, I love the CSI games. They're not good, but I love them. They did the Scarface game in 2006, and then the two prototype games for Activision. At which point, they just got probably disbanded at some point. Yeah, technically there's still 6 employees that are part of Activision Vancouver, but Canada actually disincorporated Radical Entertainment. All right, and finally, last review of this issue, Boy Boy. With a conspicuous lack of a Bomberman title for the PlayStation, Saturn Bomberman, give us a break. It's awesome that Konami's come up with Poi Poi, a 4-player party game that borders on mayhem at the low points, of which there are few, and insanity at the high points, which is pretty much all of the time. 4 players enter one of 7 rings, with each ring being populated with rocks, bombs, and other throwable objects. What happens next is so simple, it's almost mind-boggling. The 4 players start picking up the items and throwing them at each other. That's it. You throw stuff at other people, you even throw other people at other people. Brilliant. Other game publishers may do well to take note of the appeal of such simplicity. The throwing continues until everyone, save one, is dead. Bombs have a rather large radius, and there are even bigger bombs to contend with. To keep the action fast and furious, a robot flies around overhead, replenishing the items as soon as they're destroyed. There's hardly any time to think, let alone breathe. To make matters worse, you even have to deal with environmental hazards. One arena has a robot with a death ray eye that spins around, burning everyone in its path. Another has a rock dinosaur that walks around, blindly eating people. While graphics are hardly ever the most important element of multiplayer games, they still need to be counted. Poi Pois are satisfactory, although a little detail could have been used on the characters themselves. They are really just plain, flat-shaded polygon clusters with a head. But let's not get too picky. Poi Poi is a splendidly fun game, and even it succeeds as one-player venture. But to get the most out of it, you're going to need a multi-tap, 4 controllers, and 3 pals. Twister will never sell another box. The graphics are simple, but so what? The music, it doesn't matter. The concept is simple and fun. I'll play it for hours with friends. PSM final score 4. Finally, the PlayStation has a truly great party game. I am mildly curious to look at this Poi Poi. So, for the 60 minutes to sway, I think what we're going to do is we're going to look at 5 games. Final Fantasy VII, Disney's Hercules, Resident Evil Director's Cut, and the demo. Ace Combat 2, and Machine Hunter. I don't know hockey. I don't care about hockey. This is just a collection of old games. Not really worth it to check it out. Same thing for Danko Museum. Poi Poi, we might boot. So Poi Poi we might play for kind of the same amount of time that we're gonna play the Resident Evil 2 demo here. So probably we're gonna make 2 episodes out of these. One with like Final Fantasy, Hercules, and Ace Combat. And one with Machine Hunter and Resident Evil Director's Cut kind of thing. But we're gonna split it up somehow. But we're definitely gonna play this 5. Well, you could get to $10 off at Sears and get a shirt when you bought Final Fantasy VII there. Wow, it's wild that like Corporations used to advertise in magazines like that. That's the thing. I'm personally too young for the newspaper coupon. Like, that's something that I've never really experienced myself. Flashback. Ever wonder how games of the past would do if compared to today's latest hits? Wonder no longer, as PSM has gone back and dug out some of the PlayStation's classic games. We've replayed them in order to see if they still have what it takes to be number one, and then rescored them to today's standards. How do they compare? Read on and find out. Warhawk, fight-based shooter. Release date October 4th, 1995. It launched on the PlayStation 2 years ago. Warhawk was one of the titles that sold the machine. It showed off the intense 3D action and some of the special effects of the new console on the block that was capable of. Let me redo that. Some of the special effects the new console on the block was capable of. At the time, the only real criticism that could be made was they need to use more punctuation. Like, I have a hard time parsing the sentences because there's no commas and periods and stuff. By today's standards, at the time, the only real criticism that could be made was about how the game was way too short. By today's standard, Warhawk is only an average game and remains way too short. It still kind of stands alone, though, as the only hovercraft shooter available for the PlayStation, at least until G-Police comes out. Visually, it can compare to most of the games released today, but the control and physics engine can teach many of the latest titles a thing or two about gameplay. By the way, somebody tells Single Track we are still waiting for Warhawk 2 to come and blow everyone away. Original score 4 stars, new score 3 stars. Battle Arena Toshinden. The first fighting game to be released for the PlayStation, Battle Arena Toshinden, showed off the vast potential of Sony's console. The game had everything. Beautiful polygonal characters, cool-looking special moves, and true 3D environments to fight in. While the controls were a bit unforgiving at first, gamers quickly got used to it. The ability to ring out opponents was a huge plus, as well as the little extras like 4 different camera views. Now, nearly 2 years later, it originally released in September 9th, 1995, Toshinden is still a pretty good fighting game and can almost hold its weight in a genre crowded with heavy hitters. Toshinden still plays decently, even by today's standard, and the 3D character movement has yet to be surpassed. Both new and long-time PlayStation owners should definitely check it out. It originally was a 4.5, it is now a 3. Jumping Flash 2. This is from originally August 21st, 1996. It starts to describe the gameplay in Jumping Flash 2. Basically, you're a rabbit with an amazing leaping ability trying to save the world from the evil Baron Aloha. I know it's very strange. Like its predecessor, the first Jumping Flash 2 featured truly unique gameplay. Jumping from platform to platform gave a sense of acrophobia that no game could match. Even to this day, nothing like Jumping Flash 2 has ever appeared on the PlayStation. Sony should be applauded for bringing it out. It improved upon the already unique formula of the first game and added cooler graphics and a bunch of helpless moo-moos needing rescue. Sure, it has kind of a kiddie look to it, but trust us when we say it's totally fun and extremely addictive. The only thing that it could top is the highly rumored Jumping Flash 3. Oh yeah. I don't think game Jumping Flash 3 ever came out. Oh no, one did, but no, never. Well, it released in Japan. It was called Robert Mondia. This is a game that I have no experience with. I've never heard about Jumping Flash. I've heard of Jumping Flash. I've never actually played Jumping Flash. Backlog. Since this is our first issue, we thought you'd be interested in what we thought about several of the games that came out in the past several months. We rated each of them so you know where our heads are when perusing the current review section. Plan is to continue with the section from month to month so you'll always know the good from the bad and how to spend your hard-earned cash. Let's see, any 5 stars? Suikoden, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Soul Blade, Wild Arms, Tomb Raider, Tobal No. 1, and Wipeout XL. Whereas the worst of the worst, spot goes to Hollywood, and Too Extreme are the two one-star games. Seem to be pretty generous. Pepsi 3 2, that's actually appropriate. Full Borders 4, Crash Bandicoot 4, Their Trilogy 4. It does feel like maybe they're... Wait, loaded? Okay, so what's the difference between loaded and reloaded? So Reloaded is a sequel to Loaded, but it is not good. Whereas Loaded at least for the PS1 was reviewed pretty well, generally speaking. See, as a kid, I had Reloaded, I think. I never went far into it. It was not great. Jeff Gerstmann of GameSpot wrote, "The entire Loaded series is a horrible version of the Atari classic Gauntlet. Take away the blood and guts, and all that's left is a pathetic excuse for a game, 32-bit or otherwise." Alright. The top 25 PlayStation games of all time. Hey, we know everyone has their own best games ever list, but here at PSM, we thought we'd try doing things a little differently. We could sit in some stuffy room and come up with what we think are the best games, but we know the only opinions that really count here are yours, the hardcore PlayStation gamers who actually go out and spend the money. So we went to the internet and let people vote on their favorites through our website, which was accessible from many of the websites on the Imagine Games network. We provided a list of contenders, including every game that could conceivably warrant a consideration. Our only stipulation was that our contenders had to have been released before June 1st, no voting on Japanese titles or games that weren't out yet. To let your voice be heard, and we must admit, some of your votes were a little surprising. So without further ado, let's take a look at your top 25 favorite PlayStation games of all time. 25. Jumping Flash. This was a release window game. Bunny Hop here, Robot Rabbit through 3P. Yeah, we don't need to read all the descriptions. 25 Jumping Flash, 24 Warhawk, 23 Command and Conquer, 22 Wipeout, 21 NBA Shootout 97, 20 Twisted Metal, 19 Ridge Racer, 18 Street Fighter Alpha 2, 17 Formula 1 by Psygnosis, 16 Tobal Number 1, 15 NFL Game Day 97, 14 Die Hard Trilogy, 13 Jet Moto, 12 Vandal Hearts, 11 Rally Cross, 10 Destruction Derby 2, 9 Twisted Metal 2, 8 Rage Racer, 7 Crash Bandicoot, 6 Suikoden, 5 Wipeout XL, 4 Soul Blade, 3 Tekken 2, 2 Tomb Raider, number 1 Resident Evil. Of course, at the moment that Final Fantasy VII gets eligible, it would move all the way to the front. But yeah, it's interesting how, Soul Blade is a game that you really don't think about these days. I assume that it's kind of the precursor to Soul Calibur. Soul Blade game. Soul Edge is the first installment of the Soul Calibur series, yeah. Why is it called Soul Blade? Is it just called Soul Blade on the PlayStation, or? Yeah, it looks like in a North American version they just renamed it Soul Blade instead of Soul Edge. Okay, then I can see how this. I guess Mitsurugi should have given me a hint that this is what it was. But yeah, these are all the top 7. I would say are all very strong games. So not bad. The first preview is Blasto, published by Sony and made by Sony. I've seen this before for sure. I don't know that I've ever played it. Interestingly enough, he's huge, loud, packs some serious heat, and has the big mad on for pairs. There goes the galaxy. Sony's putting up big time bucks into pumping up its in-house game development. After many months of secrecy, Sony has finally unveiled Blasto, the first game developed in its Foster City studios. Our very large hero, Captain Blasto, is hunting down Bosk, the evil pair-headed mastermind, through the game's 8 different areas. Each of these environments is huge, containing upwards of 150,000 polygons, and they range from hostile deserts to huge alien fortresses. The look of the game is very reminiscent of classic Warner Brothers cartoons, which is appropriate since Blasto himself is a parody of heroes like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon. Sony has promised that Blasto will push the envelope in every conceivable fashion. The designers have bypassed the standard graphic libraries in favor of directly coding the hardware. This lets the game not only run at a smooth frame rate, 30 FPS, but also at a high resolution, 512 by 240. Also, data is constantly being streamed from the disc, so the game feels like one giant episode. Funny both how our FPS have doubled and our screen resolution has quadrupled in the time since. And that's not even talking about 4K. Even with these innovations, Blasto still has a lot to prove. In addition to showing that Sony can crank out top-rate action games in-house, it must also show the world that the PlayStation still has a lot of untapped potentials left. Here's hoping Sony succeeds. What do we have in the various screenshots? A button that says do not press. Now I wonder what harm could that possibly do. Glass pods like this one will transport you to different parts of the level, which is much easier on Blasto's poor feet. Control panels do a variety of things. Some will free imprisoned Blasto babies, while others will open up parts of the level. Lots of times, multiple enemies will ambush you. These crappy pairheads just don't know how to fight fair. When this happens, try to seek cover behind walls or other obstacles, like a giant crate to Blasto's right in the above pick, and pick them off one at a time. Cool effects, Blasto! As with most science fiction epics, Blasto features some truly impressive explosion and lighting effects. Laser traits and brightly lit explosions are but some of the eye candy that gamers will be treated to. Here you'll notice how the developers at Sony are using these effects to enhance the feeling of the game, which really adds to the overall game experience. Besides, it just looks cool. Space never looks so good thanks to gorgeous stars and other heavenly objects. I mean, I would disagree about that. But. Rescue the babes! Since Captain Blast is an action hero, he definitely requires some damsels to rescue. The Blasto babes! These cuties are imprisoned within certain levels and are aching to be freed. Who knows, maybe they'll give Blasto a reward for freeing them. Ooh la la! Blasto's falls are goofy. Blasto is some of the most oddball characters ever. The Venusian low-gravity tentacle beast and the evil dark creature with spooky red eyes. Cuckoo! Oh, you have a big blue chicken too. And hey, I know that voice. Supplying the voice of Captain Blasto is none other than the great Phil Hartman, who readers should remember from Saturday Night Live, as well as the other roles like The Simpsons' local movie star Troy McClure. Phil recorded several hundred phrases at Sony's ALA studios, which should help provide Blasto with a memorable personality. Release date, October of that year, so in a month or two, I guess. Oh, down. Colony Wars, release date September, so probably about the time the magazine was being released. Earth is dying out. To survive, it must conquer the space colonies, and it's up to you to stop them. Forget the usual save the Earth pitch. In Colony Wars, Psygnosis' new space shooter, you're fighting against Earth. See, the guys back on the home world have finally depleted the Earth's resources, and now they think they can just take what they need from the colonies. Well, it ain't gonna be that easy. As a rebel colonial pilot fighting for the League of Free Worlds, you get to feel what it's like to be a soldier in the middle of a full-on space war. There are a whopping 70 missions in all, and depending on how you perform, you will be assigned more or less advanced missions. If you play well and take the best possible mission path, you can beat the game in about 35 missions. There are 6 endings, and if your game is strong, you'll get the option to go back and play any of them in any order. The graphics are amazing, with a resolution of 520x240 and an animation of 30 FPS. The explosions are some of the best ever seen, and zooming stardust gives you a real feeling of speed. Even if you never really liked the sim style of other space shooters, you'll want to check out the intense action in Colony Wars. It is worth mentioning that because these were like old style cathode ray tube TVs, the resolution was not as important. And so, the performance, I think, was more significant. And also, you tend to sit further from the TV, right? So higher resolution means you probably would miss details. Space combat. The main difference between flying a jet fighter and a space fighter is you have to put up with all the Earth's pesky physics, like gravity. Zip around all you won't ever have to worry about stalling out. One rule still applies in both situations, though: smacking into solid objects is bad. Big ships. Some of the coolest battles in the game revolve around several giant battleships. Just don't get too close. When you fly close to one of the bigger ships, the action really heats up. Kind old ships. Hey, if you're going to fly through a whooping 70 different missions, you're going to need a few extra ships. It's a good thing that Colony Wars comes with several different fighters, each of which has its own unique handling and weapons, plus a special feature. For example, the scout ship has a turbo boost, and another ship has the ability to become temporarily invincible. Not my jam, like space shooters are never my jam, but maybe this is a good one. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Yeah, that's right, this is one of those 2D games. So what? It just happens to be one of the best games coming out this year, and it's got more gameplay than a million 32-bit polygonal platform wannabes. Spend just 1 hour slashing your way through the horrific halls of the Count's castle, and you'll wonder why we ever left the 2D side-scroller behind in the first place. You take the role of Alucard, Dracula's son, in an effort to stop the evil plans of a guy called Shaft. No, not that Shaft. This one's not nearly as good with the women. But he does have some pretty nasty spells, and he's up to no good. It's up to you to explore the game's countless rooms to find them in the game's non-linear, go wherever you want format. Think Nintendo's classic Metroid. There are also plenty of items and weapons to find, and loads of gruesome monsters. Believe me, you can't miss this one. Yeah, this was the first Castlevania that sort of went the Metroidvania route, because you can tend to forget about it. Oh, look at the map. The full map. One of the coolest parts is the boat ride, complete with creepy ferryman. The bosses in this game are just plain awesome. Check out the cool fire effects. The expansive library is the first place you'll want to go, to meet the shopkeep and get a map. This is also where you can pick up other items, weapons, and spells. The game begins when you're controlling Richter as you replay the final battle of the first Dracula X, previously available for the Super NES and the PC Engine in Japan. Shape-shifting. One of the most important new additions to the latest Castlevania is the ability to transform into multiple shapes, which will let you reach new areas, get by certain bad guys, and open up new secrets. The first shape is the Wolf, which lets you run fast and jump far. Next up is the Mist, which will let you pass through certain walls and can be powered up to do damage to enemies. Lastly, the Bat is the all-important shape that will let you fly to those pesky out-of-reach areas like Dracula's chamber. The cast. Count Dracula. Is the Count really dead? Nah, we don't think so. Shaft. The real evil mastermind. He's one bad mother. Richter Belmont. You start the game as him, then he disappears. Alucard. Dracula's son and the good guy of the game. Maria. She appears sometimes to give you items and hints. Ooh, Gex entered the Gecko. Gex is back with with killer 3D graphics and even more wisecracks. With Gex Enter the Gecko, Crystal Dynamics is planning to give PlayStation gamers a wholly unique experience. Now fully 3D, this new Gex is a vast leap over the first. The engine alone has been in development for over a year, and it shows an amazing lighting, rotation, and distortion effects. As with the first game, Gex 2 consists of several different worlds to explore, ranging from a haunted house to a Tron-like universe to levels of a unique atmosphere all their own. Gex has also been supplied with different disguises appropriate to each environment, and he has a whopping 125 attacks and idle animations. Since there is such a large number of animations, the design team is able to flip from one to another seamlessly. For example, Gex will be able to turn his head and talk while running. Luckily, the game supports Sony analog controllers, so controlling Gex is also a dream. While the game is still in its early stages, it already hints as where the designers are headed, and we're impressed. If Crystal Dynamics can keep up the quality and care shown so far, Gex 2 could be one of the hottest new games to hit the market. I've always been fascinated by the Gex games, mostly the Nintendo 64 one, because that's what I grew up with. But yeah, I don't think they really hold the test of time. Monster Mash. Gex's adventure won't be easy, thanks to the army of gruesome monsters standing in our hero's way. Each enemy presents his own unique dangers, but almost all of them offer some pretty good laughs too. Boo! These ghosts will try to corner you, but they can't follow you into the light. So many zombies chasing after Gex, you'd think this was Resident Evil 2. Gex, Master of the Tongue. One major thing that set Gex apart from the rest of the 32-bit Animal Kingdom is his uncanny tongue action. With it, he can grab bugs out of midair and can even use it to climb ledges. Supposed to be released in November, as far as they say. Oh, that's not for the first ever Dynasty Warriors? I guess that makes sense, right? Dynasty Warriors. Because the kind of gameplay that Dynasty Warriors has is something that couldn't really be done until the 3D came up. This here's a spin-off of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms strategy series. Oh, the first game is actually just a fighting game. Oh. So this is not a Musu yet. It's just a regular fighting game. Dynasty Warriors 2 coming out in 2000 for PlayStation 2 will be the first real Muso game. That's cool. NFL Game Day 98, release date September. No, these aren't shots from the rendered intro or TV. This is actual gameplay, babe. I mean, could you really just... Could you really confuse this for a TV picture? Come on. You know, it plays probably well and it looks decent, but this is not a TV thing. Come on. We've all heard the whispers from desperate Nintendo 64 supporters. The PlayStation is done and can't do any better than it already has. At this point, the defense would be to enter NFL Game Day 98 as Exhibit A. It's the sequel to the best playing football game of all time. It's the first polygonal football game, and it runs at a smooth 30 frames per second. Take that, Nintendo! The fully 3D world has several advantages. First, it lets developers texture map letter-perfect uniforms onto the players. Also, the fact that the polygons take up real 3D space makes for much better collision detection, which is key in football. New gameplay additions include a high step and juke, new grabbing tackles, and loads of animation for every position. The dynamic camera pulls out so you can see your receivers downfield, but when you're running the ball, it zooms in so you can maneuver around defenders. There is no doubt NFL Game Day 98 is a technological wonder, but the new twist is that the technology actually enhances the gameplay. Once again, Game Day is more than ready to go head-to-head with Madden and any football game on this planet. Yeah, it seems to me they're kind of like brown nosing it up to Sony, maybe just a little bit. Sweet graphics. Game Day 98's polygonal players are done to perfection, and the rest of the game doesn't look so bad either. From a distance, you'd swear it was real. Tomb Raider 2 coming out in November. Oh yeah, Lara's back with bigger adventures, bigger guns, and bigger... you get the idea. Jesus Christ. The caption. Lara Croft, freelance adventurer, video game superstar, and life-saving flotation device. The original Tomb Raider was the first game of its kind to feature such realistic 3D environments, but Lara Croft was the perfect heroine. An oozy, touting Indiana Jones with a chest the size of Rhode Island. Is that large? I guess technically it's large compared to humans, but it's small compared to states, so I don't know. I'm assuming large is what they're going for, but... Well, this November, the lovely Miss Croft returns in the most eagerly awaited sequel of the year. While the first game had our buxom heroine exploring confined dark caverns, Tomb Raider 2 has more open and exotic locales. The town of Venice is one of the cooler, newer environments, with its canals and tall buildings to climb. Another stage puts Lara in the sunken Titanic. Scattered around the ship are the little pockets of air which you must find to survive the level. Tomb Raider 2 still uses the same basic engine as its predecessor, but with a few refinements. Environments will be larger and use extra polygons, and new light sourcing effects add a higher level of realism. Also, Lara's arsenal has been increased, with new items such as a harpoon gun for use underwater, and flares, which light dark areas. Lara even gets 2 new uniforms, a wetsuit and a leather jacket. Sorry, no bikini. With all its refinement and enhancement, Tomb Raider 2 looks to be much more than a pretty sequel. Let's go adventuring. Oh god, all of these captions are pretty terrible. Mess with the best and die like the rest. Lara now sports more polygons, making her even more lifelike than before. Hey baby, what's up? The clothes make the woman. Current fashion is always the in thing for women of style. Why should Lara be any different? Tomb Raider 2 gives her a couple new spicy outfits that will certainly keep our lady hero on the cutting edge and give her the all-important advantage over those terribly unfashionable bad guys. Here we see Lara in her new jacket, which keeps her warm in cold locations. Hey Lara, you might want to rethink the shorts. And here's our heroine in her sexy new skin-tied wetsuit. Anyone up for a dip with Mrs. Croft? Some new skills. Lara's picked up some useful skills since her earlier adventures. She can now scale walls and light dark passages with flares. Other new maneuvers like a crawl are said to be in the works, but have yet to be seen. Okay. Venice. The levels in Tomb Raider 2 are much more open and varied. This is personified in the Venice stage, which is set outdoors. Wild Nines by Interplay, coming out in September. After Earthworm Jim, Shiny's looking to get a bit meaner. Shiny's original 32-bit project, Wild Nines, has been in development for what seems like forever. The developers are still toiling away, perfecting the animations and the engine to make it something definitely to look forward to in the near future. With a host of bizarre, detailed characters to interact with throughout the game, this may be one of the more ambitious game endeavors yet. In the meantime, we'll be able to see a little of what Shiny has been up to since it started on Wild Nines with the release of MDK on the PlayStation. The successful PC release should translate equally well into the home console gaming market, making Shiny no longer simply a promising hope for the future of video game industry, but a creative force to be reckoned with. This looks very concept artish, and I don't know why we're doing a preview on this game. Wild Nines? Did this thing even come out? Because I've never heard of it before. Again, it's possible, but... So it became called Wild 9. Ended up being released of like a full year later. September 1998 to fine reviews. Shiny Entertainment is the studio founded by David Perry. They have such a weird record. Like, they did Earthworm Jim 1 and 2. Fine. Probably not great, but fine. MDK, which I think people like well enough. Not MDK 2. Wild 9, RC Stuntcopter, Messiah, which is the game with, like, the little angel and stuff. A game called Sacrifice. It rings a bell, sort of. Oh yeah, just a very weird output. Alright, moving on. Porsche Challenge. Get ready to go really freaking fast with Sony's latest racer. Already a smash hit in Europe, Sony of America has made the right decision by choosing to port Porsche Challenge over to the States. Thanks to the full support from Porsche, the 3D modeled cars are realistic as you can get, adding cool tracks and super fast gameplay, and we might just have the next superstar racing on our hand. Porsche Challenge is timed nicely with the release of the brand new Porsche model to come out in 18 years, the Boxster, which is the only car featured in the game. To vary your experience, however, you can choose from many different drivers, each with their own unique style of racing. The Sony analog control pad is supported, which makes another great reason to invest in this hot peripheral. Since few people have actually driven a Boxster, it's hard to say how accurately the game recreates the real thing. Regardless, there's an arcade mode as well as a simulation mode, so you can toss out the rules and just burn rubber if you want to. Porsche Challenge is definitely one to look for this fall. View to a thrill. Like any good race game, Porsche Challenge offers multiple views for the player. Each one has its own advantages and disadvantages. I still feel like they're trying, they say, oh, we're 100% independent. But they're cozying it up to all the Sony games quite a lot, especially in these previews. Oh, Fighting Force. The people who gave us Tomb Raider are about to bring the classic arcade beat 'em up back in a big way. While a quick glance at Fighting Force may bring up comparisons to such classic brawlers like Double Dragon or Final Fight, a deeper look reveals a game with its own merits and unique gameplay. Unlike its predecessors, Fighting Force's environments are completely 3D. Gamers are free to explore anywhere they choose, which should hopefully increase the replay value of the game. Since everything is polygonal, characters can interact with the backgrounds in a variety of ways. Virtually everything can be picked up or destroyed. You can knock down a wall to reveal a secret area, or smash a car and throw the tires at approaching enemies. The finished game will feature 4 playable characters: Hawk Manson, Ben Smasher Johnson, Alana McKendrick, and Mace Daniels. Each has a distinct look and personality thanks to Mark Silvestri, the popular Image comic artist who designed them. Gamers won't have to worry about a shortage of special moves for these characters either, as each one will have 40 to 50 at their disposal. If that isn't enough, weapons such as knives, gun, and rocket launchers can also be found. Core has worked hard on the computer AI as well. Enemies are extremely smart and will adapt to those gamers who rely too much on the same moves. Simply mashing the punch button is no longer an option. You should think about situations, then decide what the best course of action should be. With its large 3D environments, cool characters, and in-depth fighting system, Fighting Force looks set to become another big franchise for the company that brought us Tomb Raider. Franchise? No, not much. But again, I personally have very fond memories of this game because my friend had it back in elementary school. Making a mess. Core has spent time making the environments as interactive as possible, so players will pretty much be able to destroy anything that they come across. Here, Mace takes out all of her frustration on the parked car. What's more, she can even pick up the tires and use them as weapons. Here's hoping the car's owner has insurance. There's a little sticker for you to put on your PlayStation if you wanted to. Stick it to the man. Oh, the preview continues. Well, sort of. It's sort of split over those 2 pages. Here's another look at the Fighting Force crew, made by the Image comic people. Show me your moves. To keep combat interesting and non-repetitive, Fighting Force features an extremely complex fighting engine. To beat tougher enemies, gamers will have to figure out how to execute secret moves like Hawk's Spin Kick, which is strong enough to flatten several bad guys at once. Mastering the game's most powerful moves is the key. 2-player versus mode. So you're walking along beating up bad guys as usual, only your friend, your supposed partner in the game, keeps taking shots at you. Well, before you threaten a control pad and proceed to kick the living crap out of him, Fighting Force offers you another alternative. A 2-player versus mode with all the trimming of a full-on one-on-one fighting game. Then you can settle the score once and for all without making a mess of the den. Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. Oh, this is a bad one. The ninja with a heart of ice is a game all his own and has brought his fatalities with him. Mortal Kombat co-creator John Tobias just might be onto something. You take a character from your hugely popular fighting game series, put him in a side-scrolling adventure, and throw in some good old-fashioned beat-em-up action to round it out. The result? Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. As the title suggests, the Frigid Ninja takes center stage on this offshoot of Mortal Kombat legacy. While staying true to its roots, Mythology takes the series into a decidedly different direction, melding the infamous fighting action found in previous Mortal Kombat installments with traditional adventure elements. Taking place prior to the events in the first Mortal Kombat, the game sheds light on Sub-Zero's shady past. The game also provides insight on the mysteries that players will be presented with in Mortal Kombat 4. Sub-Zero's classic moves are all present, and you'll need them in order to avoid traps, solve puzzles, and fight enemies. Enemies? The game is overflowing with them, and some familiar and some new. Will Midway succeed? We'll just have to wait and see. Telling the myth. FMV movies place between each level, telling Sub-Zero's story with live-action sequences. Master, I've returned with the scroll. Now all you show me the fatality fag that you found on the internet. So you see the FAQ, huh? Fool, if I show it to you, then I will no longer be Supreme Combat Champion #1. Too bad, Sub-Zero was a good soldier. Yes, Master. By the way, are you going to be using that FAQ this weekend? Why Sub-Zero? Why Sub-Zero? Why not Liu Kang, Raiden, or one of the countless other combatants? Simple. According to John Tobias, Sub-Zero is not only the most recognizable of the MK characters, he also is the most interesting background story of the bunch. However, that's not to say that the other MK alumni won't get their chance at the spotlight in the future. John Turk, a real-life cop, breathes life into Sub-Zero's story. You never noticed the weird little sandals that they're wearing? This game is bad, by the way. I'm actually curious to try it out when they eventually review it. But, you know, I've watched the playthrough on Giant Bomb's Black Club series, and boy, that's a bad game. Bushido Blade. Coming out in September. All these games seem to be coming out in the next, 3 months, and yet that's not really going to be the case. Bushido Blade. Okay, forget everything you ever learned about the fighting games. Bushido Blade is set to revolutionize the genre. In Bushido Blade, you play a student who discovers that your martial arts school is actually an assassin's guild. You escape to an abandoned castle only to be trapped by your former teachers and friends, who you'll need to fight through and kill to escape. Pretty cool so far, huh? The combat system is totally new. Gunner power meters, time limits, and ring outs. Instead, Bushido Blade focuses on realistic weapons combat fought across huge 3D areas. You can even kill or cripple a guy with one well-placed strike. You get 6 characters and 6 weapons to choose from. Any character can use any weapon, matching the fighter skill with an appropriate weapon is part of the game's strategy. Bushido Blade may turn off a few die-hard brawler fans, but overall it looks to be one of the more innovative and impressive fighting games ever for the PlayStation. I think it's also that it's kind of, if you get cut by a sword, you tend to, die for real, right? So, or unless I'm thinking of a different game. But no, I think it would be Bushido Blade. Many ways to die. In order to give Bushido Blade a lot of replay value, Square's provided different fight modes. First person mode. The first person perspective mode takes a little getting used to. This is the only way you can play it if you link up with another player. Slash mode. Sort of an endurance test, the slash mode challenges you to defeat 100 opponents without dying. If you make it, a secret option is revealed. Story mode. Player must follow the code of Bushido if they hope to succeed in the story mode. You'll have to fight clean. No backstabbing. Stances. Much like in real sword fighting, every character uses a high, middle, and low stance. Each of these positions has a benefit and a weakness that must be learned. High. The stance will put you in position to deliver the most powerful attacks, but the trade-off is that you're left wide open if you miss. Also, because of the powers of these high attacks, they're very hard to parry. Medium. This should be your standard default stance. It's good for balanced attack with good defensive and offensive capabilities. Also, it's good for quick counterattacks. Your reach isn't as good, though. Low. A low stance gives you great range, but it can also leave you open and vulnerable to a counterattack. The stance is best for taking out an opponent's legs, but it's also worse for defense. Death Trap Dungeon by Eidos. After Tomb Raider, Eidos gets medieval. Set in a world created by the best-selling fantasy author Ian Livingstone, Death Trap Dungeon is all about fast and bloody medieval action. Battles take place hand-to-hand with swords and by casting spells. You'll encounter over 50 varieties of enemies, including the obligatory staple of dungeon baddies. Orcs, skeletons, wizards, and giants, fire-breathing dragons. Those are particularly nasty. Heading up the Death Trap Dungeon team is Richard Halliwell, who European pen and paper RPG fan may remember for his work on Warhammer and Space Hulk. He'll be bringing his penchant for puzzles, so you can expect plenty of his trademark mindbenders along with intense action. So far it looks good, but after a game like Tomb Raider, Eidos has a lot to live up to. They don't really describe what it is. Also, boy, this costume for this like Lara Croft look-alike model is yeah, not great. Death Trap Dungeon. This again, this feels way too early. There's no way this releases in October. Death Trap Dungeon. I guess you can find it on Steam too. Yeah, it came out in March 1998. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say this was a not great game. Which is shocking, given how they have one of the two main characters, what they have as her costume. G-Police. Now, this is going to be a good game that I never actually touched. When the movie Blade Runner was released in 1982, Blade Runner should be two words than one word, I'm pretty sure, but it established the standard by which all future science fiction movies would be judged. Now, 16 years later, G-Police, with its Blade Runner-esque cityscapes and foreboding grim atmosphere, hopes to do the same for video games. It is the year 2097, and humans have now established colonies on Callisto, one of Jupiter's moons. To survive the harsh lunar environment, the colonies built huge protective domes over their cities. The G-Police were formed to uphold the law. Piloting futuristic gunships called Havocs, they patrol the various cities looking for suspicious activity. As a member of the G-Police, your responsibility is to safeguard the city's residents from two competing corporations, Krakow and Nanosoft. The game will feature 35 missions of varying difficulty, and Psychnosis has promised that these won't be a run-of-the-mill search-and-destroy missions either. Amidst all the action, the game's major subplot centers on the disappearance of your sister and her efforts to find out what happened to her. G-Police has the looks, the big explosions, and the cool ships, so watch out come December. Fire and Death. You may be wondering, why are the graphics in this game so dark? Well, it's so the environments light up real nice when you blow them up. Designs of the future. The designers of G-Police put a lot into coming up with realistic-looking future environment. That means designing everything from scratch, from buildings to cars to cities and people. Madden 98. Madden's back and E is hungrier than ever. The Mighty Madden made a triumphant return last year and became the best-selling football game on PlayStation. The classic Madden gameplay, coupled with 32-bit presentation, spelled major success for EA's most coveted franchise. This year, Madden 98 stayed with the sprite-based players and worked on the porous defensive AI instead. Despite its commercial success, Madden 97 did not win the hearts of many critics. The problem was what we like to call the play. As with every Madden in history, certain money plays are virtually unstoppable. The developers put them there to reward players, but in the end they only take away from the realism and competitive nature of the game. However, this time around, the developers at last decided to go without any money plays. Instead, the defense will learn play calling tendencies and often shut down your big play just when you need it the most. While the graphics aren't looking as good as those in Game Day 98, see our preview on page 43 to compare for yourself, the key will be which game plays better. EA is hoping that new playbooks, new passing, new moves, and more in-depth strategy will make Madden 98 the best ever. We'll just have to wait and see. Stats galore. If the folks over at EA Sports know one thing, it's stats. Chances are, if you wanted to see how many times Mean Joe Green took a leak during his career, you could pull up some windows somewhere in Madden that would tell you. Which is great if you're a hardcore fan who keeps up with every minute aspect of the game. Yeah, I gotta say, the sprites compared to the NFL game day, like, this to me is a no-brainer, and you definitely want to go with NFL game day. Like a straight-up no-brainer. Oh, and here's a good one. Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. To action fans worldwide, he's a living legend, the only Bandicoot who does all of his own stunts. After Crash exploded onto the scene last year to the tune of 1.5 million copies sold worldwide, you just knew a sequel wouldn't be far behind. The developers at Naughty Dog have totally reworked the game engine and produced a game leaps and bounds above its predecessor. From a visual standpoint, Crash 2 is now much brighter and colorful. New, higher detail bitmaps litter the game and provide each level with its own distinctive look and personality. Weather conditions such as snow and rain appear in certain levels and add the proverbial icing on the cake. Character animations are much better as well. Crash alone has over 10 times more frames of animation, offering a lot more moves like hanging, climbing, ducking, and belly flopping. One of the few complaints about the first game was that it was too linear. To remedy this, Crash 2 adds warp zones for more branching levels. Instead of having to finish a particular section before continuing, gamers will now have the ability to warp to each level whenever they choose. If you're stuck on a certain part, you can just skip it and come back later. With all these enhancements, Crash 2 is looking to be one of the coolest games this year. No doubt about it, the Bandicoot is back, and in a very big way. To me, this is probably the best of the Crash Bandicoot games. Like, part of my heart will always be with Crash 3 because it was my first Crash Bandicoot game. And I can appreciate some parts of Crash 1. But 2 to me is just the sweet spot between fun varied levels, interesting biomes, interesting challenges. It's when they added, well, no, I guess the hogs were there already in the first game, but look at this little polar bear. Come on, look at this little polar bear. Several new death animations have been added in Crash 2. Now this game has more ways to die than New York City. From drowning to head-on collisions to getting burnt to crisp, Crash always seems to meet his demise with a humorous attitude. That's the spirit, Crash. Crash's got mad skills. Crash still has a spin attack, but he also learned a few new moves along the way. From sliding to crawling, he certainly got the skills to pay the bills. Hanging is one of Crash's more useful abilities. How else would you cross lava? Use the crawl to get into tight areas and under low-hanging ceilings. Sliding is one of Crash's specialties. He just loves going out in the snow. Crash has also got mad jumps that would put David Lee Roth to shame. Curve Splash! Doing a belly flop on land can be pretty painful, but Crash likes it. Bonus time. Bonus levels have changed a lot since the first Crash game. Originally, gamers had to collect 3 special icons to be transported to bonus areas. The game also took a few seconds to load these up. Now, bonus areas are a bigger part of the gameplay. Throughout the levels, you'll notice platforms marked with a question mark, which take you directly to the bonus area, and with no more access time either. Know your PlayStation. I guess so that's the end of the previews, so... I'm still baffled that they give more screen time to previews than they do to actual reviews, but I guess that's just what it was. All right, let's get into the columns and the special features. It's been 2 years of gaming fun since the launch of the PlayStation. Have you kept up with all there is to know about the PlayStation world? A system as massive as the Sony PlayStation has had many myths surface about it. In an attempt to dispel the rumors and generally educate enthusiasts, we consulted the experts to bring you the final word on your favorite platform. Completely comprehensive, everything you need to know is here. A troubleshooting guide to diagnose what PlayStation woes, the many ways to plug in your system, how to get the best resolution, the PlayStation's rainbow of colors and what they signify, the kind of toys to plug into your system, and a stint on import gaming and hacking your station. By the end of the feature, you will possess the info necessary to make you an all-knowing PlayStation expert. So get with it. Knowledge is power. Know your PlayStation. This is interesting, but also we don't really need to look at troubleshooting. Yeah, this is an interesting feature. But I don't know that I feel the need to read through it. Because, well, we don't have a real PlayStation to work with anyway. Or real discs. Let's look at all the accessories. I think that's interesting. So there's the digital and analog controllers, of course. There's the standard controller, the enhanced gamepad, which is like a turbo auto fire and things like that are third parties typically. The Dual Shock, which hadn't quite come out yet. The standard controller just feels like it has something missing to it. I'm sure that if you had a large PlayStation, you have strong nostalgia associated to it. But man, there's just something missing. Oh, I guess these are not specific controls, they're just types of peripherals. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're good. The complete release gaming list. That's a waste of pages. Is this? I don't think this is the actual cover of PSM number 2. I'm now curious, and I want to try and... Actually, I guess I can just do this. Yeah, definitely not the actual cover of PSM 2. Okay. Oh, so now we are getting into the strategy guides and stuff. Spoiler alert, this guide contains a complete walkthrough of the first disc of Final Fantasy VII and should only be used when necessary. Again, we don't really need to read through this. Because, well, so it's funny, right? For PC at the time, clue books were all the rage, so you wouldn't get regular magazine, just print solutions and walkthroughs. But for PlayStation and console games, the Nintendo Power idea was still very much alive. But yeah, this is Final Fantasy VII. We're gonna play the first hour of it. I think we're probably gonna make it up to meeting Aerith, would be my guess. Um, Cosmo Canyon, Gold Saucer, Nibiru Home, recruiting Yuffie. Yeah, you forget that Yuffie is actually an optional character in Final Fantasy VII. And we also have a guide to Ace Combat 2, the skills to make you an ace. I would actually refer to this when we're playing the game for 60 minutes this way, just to give it a quick check. But again, no real need to look at these or at Felony 1179. Oh, that's cool. They give you tip sleeves that you could cut and fold and put in your PlayStation disc container. Are these the English names of these foods? No, yeah, this is the Japanese, but the names may change. That makes sense. All right. So I mean, they're giving a Chocobo breeding guide, but with the Japanese names of the herbs. This kind of makes it very pointless. Code Bible. Again, no real reason to read all of this. You know, it's just these are cheat codes for all your games. Command and Conquer revealed the whole map. Hold R1 or 2, L1, L2, circle, square. You need to hold these buttons while the game is loading. Release them when the mission briefing begins. And then level passwords. That's a lot of... I'm guessing they did not have a lot of material to cover this issue, being issue 1. And so as a result, they were like, fuck it, let's just put like, how long is this? 12 pages of codes? 14, 16 pages just of cheat codes. And one more specific page for other stuff. Oh, are we? By the way, let me check that the page alignment is still correct. I think we might be slightly off. Yeah. So the issue is that these kind of mess up the PDF for pages. So the pages are supposed to go opposite this way. All right. Code Junkies, again, not really useful. Jetmoto, Dynasty Warriors, NBA Shootout, we're good. Hint lines for all the publishers, this is interesting. Game Shark codes too. Calendar of events at IGN. Trying to still advertise all of their websites that they have. Alright, we just have the letters, and then we are done with this issue. I guess it's going to be one recording after all. Partly thanks to like the 40 pages of cheat codes and walkthroughs. Welcome to the premiere forum PlayStation, for PlayStation fans, where we dig into today's hottest issues. PSM isn't just a passive experience, so drop us a line with PSM letters, care of Imagine Publishing, 150 Northfield Drive, Brisbane, California, 94005, or even better, if you have access to email, we're at psm@imagine-inc.com. We want Tobal 2! Come on, Square, just listen to these grief-stricken gamers. Just putting my 2 cents in for a US release of Tobal 2. The Sony customer demands that either Sony rescues Tobal 2 itself, or Sony fixes my PlayStation so I can play imports without risking to damage my hardware. One or the other, it's only fair. Douglas Fisher, dfisher@mpr.org. With the recent announcement that Tobal 2 is not going to be released in the US, is it possible that Sony intends to seize control and go ahead and release this title, since it has the rights to do so? If so, does the third-party company get any profits from this? Douglas, I never know how to read that. I think it's when? dng@ncd.com. Chris, we received tons of mail on the subject. Unfortunately, the people I talked to at Sony would love to release Tobal 2 here, but Square is the only one putting a stop to it. Check out Ask Sony, page 110, for more info. Are you listening, Sony? Are you listening, Square? America does want Tobal 2. Hey, everybody, be sure to check out our coverage of Tobal 2 in this month's Japanese column, page 24. Will PSM be dedicating any print space to the infamous skipping bug problem found in early PlayStations? 4 replaced PlayStations later, my games play with no problems. However, I never received a straight answer from Sony as to why my PlayStation was skipping in the first place. Does anyone know the real story on this? Don't ask Sony, it doesn't believe there was a problem to begin with. David Reyes. I guess he was at utb.edu. Noah. Hopefully your troubleshooting feature, page 60, will answer most of your questions. A couple of quick things for keeping your new PlayStation running smoothly. Don't set it on the carpet and put it on a flat, smooth surface so air can get to the cooling vents underneath. It might also help to unplug the power cord after use. The key is to find ways to keep the unit cool, since most of the skipping problems are caused when a machine overheats. Sony has taken steps to fix this problem. The latest batch of systems include modifications that will finally put an end to all the problems that have plagued PlayStation owners in the past, hopefully. Isn't it about time we saw some games that weren't driving, fighting, or first-person shooters? I'm getting tired of seeing the same genres over and over with different graphics. Ken Pierce. Noah. Amen. If you're really looking for something new, keep an eye out for these games. Some are already out, the others will be out soon. Parappa the Rappa, Aquanauts Holiday, Carnage Heart, and IQ Intelligent Cube. These games are way out there, man. Two games in particular, Aeon Flux, Viacom, and Ghost in the Shell are of major interest to me. Do you have any info on these projects, like when we'll see them stateside? Both are based on their anime roots and have major cult followings. They should sell well given the increased popularity of anime in the US. MTV put Aeon on the map. That game is years overdue. What's the deal? Any word is a welcome one. Mark Plastic. Steve. Since I'm a big fan of anime myself, I'm always glad when an anime-based game makes it over the Western shores. However, the anime fan base in the US is still comparatively small, so domestic companies seldom believe the games will do well here. The Aeon Flux game has been in production for quite a while now, and PSM will strive to gain more info about it. As for Ghost in the Shell, it is slated for a late summer release in Japan, but will probably not show up on domestic shores. Hi! I came across your website from Ultra GP Online, and I would like to wish you the best of luck in making PSM the best mag available for the PlayStation. I live in Singapore, and I recently acquired my PlayStation. I have had many systems before, but sadly all of them are now obsolete. My first 32-bit system was 3DO, and I must say I made a big mistake. So it was only after a lot of thinking that I purchased another system, since I didn't want to make the same mistake twice. And I think I made the right choice in getting a PlayStation instead of a Nintendo 64 or Saturn. However, I have two questions I hope you can help me with. Number 1. I heard rumors that Sony will introduce a 64-bit system soon. Is this true? If so, how much longer will the present system be around? 2. In Singapore, we get a lot of Japanese systems. This is fine, except we can only play Japanese games. It makes a lot of difference since our first language is English. As such, we're unable to play games from the US. Why does Sony make two incompatible systems, and how can we play US games in Singapore if we can't get US systems? Mohammed Kefi Atan. I'm certainly glad you made the right decision to get a PlayStation. How can you go wrong with such a huge library of games? As for Sony's 64-bit system, I am sure Sony would have nothing to gain by releasing a new system too early. It still has great plans for the PlayStation, so I wouldn't predict a new console to rear its head until at least Christmas '98. Besides, we still have a ton of very cool games to look forward to. Metal Gear Solid, Castlevania, and Final Fantasy VIII, just to name a few. 2. PlayStation contained territorial lockouts for several reasons. Mostly, it helps out each branch of Sony, Japan, Europe, US, etc., control its own marketing and profits. As for playing US games on your Singapore system, you can use swap methods as well as mod chip conversions. See other letters in our troubleshooting guide on page 60. I've read that Mega Man X4 won't be coming to the PlayStation in the US. Well, I'm a fan of every Mega Man game, and I want to play Mega Man X4 on the PlayStation. Also, will the Street Fighter collection be on the US PlayStation? It has 3 games, right? Super Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and the Japanese version of Street Fighter Alpha 2. Vid. Steve. I was greatly concerned when I found out that Mega Man X4 might not be released in the US. I decided to call up Capcom to get the real scoop, and they assured me that X4 is still scheduled for a July-August release. We'll just have to wait, hope, and see. The Super Street Fighter collection will definitely be heading to the US this August, and the second disc will feature the game Super Street Fighter Alpha Zero Gold, which is the special version of the Alpha Zero 2 game from Japan, minus the tag team mode. For the full scoop, check out our review in this very issue. Okay, well, I have to say this new mag is an awesome idea, and I hope it becomes the best mag in the world. Now, here are my questions. 1. Chris, will you still wear the purple cape at PSM? 2. Is it possible that a new PlayStation will be released in the next year or so? 3. Is Final Fantasy VII really worth the wait? Derek Major. Chris, thanks for the kind words, Derek. As for your questions, Number 1. The Cape rumors were started by one Bill Donahue. A perfectly normal. He's the Cape freak. 2. I really wouldn't bet on seeing the next PlayStation until Christmas '98 at the earliest. 3. Yes, Final Fantasy VII is definitely worth the wait. Believe me, you won't be disappointed. I have just one question. Where in the world is the sequel to Warhawk? Freddy Avalos. Steve. I talked with Single Track about a possible Warhawk sequel and they have no plans at this time. They are, however, busy working on Jet Moto 2, which should be a great game in its own right. Gotta get modified. To chip or not to chip. What are the legal issues surrounding the popular mod chips for the PlayStation? As the media gets new game information to us faster, we become impatient that much sooner. This problem is exacerbated by announcements that some of these games will never make it to us, like Tobal 2. The determined gamer will find a way to play the imported games through the use of a mod chip. I've heard rumors that Sony is trying to stop the sale of these chips, and I'm curious about its chances of success. If Sony has no legal grounds, perhaps you could provide a service to gamers by providing a centralized source of information about these chips and where to get them. Thanks and good luck on the new magazine. Bart Hubbard. Also, I would like to say good luck with your new magazine. I hope it works for you because I'm a loyal PlayStation owner and I like to read all the news about it I can. Actually, I have one question I would like to ask. Will there ever be a card PlayStation owners can buy that will let us play Japanese games on the American system? I know the Sappy Saturn has one, but I was wondering why PlayStation doesn't. Thanks and good luck. David White. Noah. Legally, it's kind of a gray area. Sony certainly doesn't encourage getting your PlayStation modified, and if you go through it, your warranty will be voided. However, it's not like the FBI is going to kick down your door or anything. I know several people who are very happy with their modified PlayStations. However, for every 10 satisfied owners, there are probably 3 or 4 who have a horror story. So, modify at your own risk. Do some checking around, and if you do decide to go through with it, make sure you choose a reputable company to avoid any unpleasantness. However, the only surefire 100% safe way to play Japanese games is simply to buy a Japanese PlayStation. PlayStation is a great system and it deserves a great magazine. I think you should focus on the problems with PlayStation so they can be solved. The magazine should enforce and encourage the ideas of readers so maybe they could become true. I hope this magazine becomes a success. Carlson, webmaster at countessgoods.com. This feels like a fake letter. Today, this feels like it would be like an AI-generated letter of sorts, but... Chris. Carl, you must be a mind reader. Our main goal here at PSM is to serve as the ultimate resource for hardcore PlayStation fans like yourself. And just because we're pro-PlayStation, we're not going to shy away from the tough problems. Just take a look at our PlayStation troubleshooting guide this very issue. We're already talking about things that other mags wouldn't dare go near. As for letting readers put in ideas, we're trying very hard to encourage this, and just as hard to make sure that your input is heard throughout the industry. Together, we're going to really shake things up. Warning, this is one of the strange letters that always appears in the magazine's first issue. Dear PSM, I think you guys are great. PSM is my favorite PlayStation-only magazine. You guys know what's up in the latest news and previews, and your reviews are so informative. I buy every game you score highly. It's great that you cover imports as extensively as you do, and your RPG coverage bars none. It's nice to see all this great content pulled together with an industry-leading layout and graphical design. Kudos to PSM and your great public service to us all deprived gamers. Adam Ziegler. Chris. Thanks, Adam. You know, when we started PSM back in the mid-80s, an awful lot of people laughed at the idea of publishing a PlayStation magazine before there even was a PlayStation. But we held in there, and thanks to the support of loyal readers like you, we're the ones laughing now. Cool side, by the way, thirdgeneration.com. I am very confused by this letter. The warning, the concept of the letter to be published in number 1 of the magazine, and the response to it are all very baffling to me. I feel like this must be some sort of inside joke from, what's it called? From the editors at other magazines that sell like previews or something. But I hope PSM will not follow a typical method used in video game magazines where they put huge pictures of upcoming games on their covers, but then the magazines only have 1 paragraph of text about the cover image. That always ticks me off. Also, I hope you have a comprehensive tips section. Yeah, I know it's only us pitiful people use codes, but hey, it's fun. Thanks, Pancho. Chris. Yes, that always sticks me off too, so you can expect things to be a little different here. Just take this issue, for example. We've worked hard to pull together a 10-page strategy guide, a full review, and other goodies behind our Final Fantasy VII cover. With PSM, what you see on the cover really is what you get inside the mag. Dear PSM, I wish the new PlayStation magazine will feature more Japanese information. It would be a nice enhancement for the mag. Thanks and have a great one. Jack Chang. Bill. Jack, your prayers have been answered. PSM will feature a monthly column called Nihon Game Otaku, Japanese Game Addict. Oh, no, that's not correct. It should be Nihon no Game Otaku. And even then, there probably should be something in between game and otaku, but whatever. Whether you have a modified American console, a regular Japanese one, or are just curious, you can't keep up with what's going on in the land of the rising sun. Arigato. Getting to know you. You told us what you want, and we're listening to you. Hey guys, congrats on the new mag. I can't wait to pick up the first issue. If your eye patch logo is any clue, I'm sure it's the same irreverence of Ultra GP will shine through, and hopefully the same journalistic integrity. Can you tell me how you're going to distinguish yourself from the other PlayStation-only mags? Man, your previews and reviews are so lame. I hope yours can at least give us a little more lowdown on the playability and whether the game is worth the ducats. Thanks and good luck. John. Chris. Well, I can't say we're going to be quite as insane as UGP, but you can bet that we're not going to be dry like some of the other stale mags either. And don't worry about getting your in-depth previews. That's a PSM specialty. First off, I would like to thank you guys for finally creating a dedicated PlayStation magazine. I know your PSM will be the PlayStation mag to get, and you can count on my subscription. I am a very recent Nintendo 64 to PlayStation convert. I only now realize how amazing the Sony system is and how puny the Nintendo 64 is in comparison. And no 32 bits versus 64 bits arguments. The quality of the games is the only important factor, period. Anyway, enough ranting. I wish you guys lots of luck, and remember with this new mag, anything less than godly will be a letdown. I hope you can pull it off though. Matthew Wetton. You're welcome, Matt. I know it's about time. Just be sure you stick with us over here on the good side, and stay Nintendo 64 free, okay? It's great you guys are putting together this magazine. I'm sure it will get the grade A treatment that has made Imagine's other mags like Next Generation so popular. Your staff seems pretty experienced to be giving us PlayStation owners the up-to-date info we hungrily seek. I consider myself a born-again gamer. I missed out on the 8 and 16-bit eras, and my last systems being the Atari 2600 and ColecoVision. One word: Smurfs. I avoided contributing to the deep pockets of Nintendo and decided to contribute to the deep pockets of Sony. I have never been more satisfied and amazed with a particular electronic gadget as I have with my PlayStation. It continues to pique my interest with the sheer choice of software, and it always keeps me coming back. One reason is Sony's marketing campaign really hit the mark with me. I am a 20-something who likes an edge and some complexity to my games. I got back into gaming first by playing computer games, still do, but PlayStation holds a unique part due to its ease of setup and mobility. Well, just thought I'd wish you guys luck. See you on the net and on the newsstand. Dave Hernandez. Steve. Thanks for the comments, Dave. It's unfortunate that you missed out on the old 8-bit days of gaming. Castlevania, Final Fantasy, and Metal Gear were all amazing games back then, but luckily they are showing up once again on the PlayStation and now are even better. We're glad that you're happy with your PlayStation, as we are. It's a wonderful machine, and Sony has done a great job marketing it. The next PlayStation? Everybody wants to know about Sony's next big console. I've heard rumors about a PlayStation upgrade set to release this fall. Can you deny or confirm these rumors? Joshua Jones. Is it true that Sony plans to bring a new system in 1999? Will it incorporate DVD technology? Also, what about the graphics card or chip is it going to use? So many new cards are out now that surpass the PlayStation. Also, what will be the estimated price at launch? Keep up the good work. I've followed you guys since you first started. How about a job? Rod Anadon. Noah, thanks for your early dedication to our fine magazine. Come to think of it, we've been looking for someone to go around and pick up our Nerf ammunition after we've launched at each other. Sounds like fun, Rod? Anyway, no official announcements have been made about any kind of PlayStation 2 just yet. But you can be sure we'll bring you the news first, so stay in touch, and in the meantime, keep an eye on our rumors column. Can you please have a real nicely sized section on RPGs? Most magazines tend to shy away from this particular genre. Why doesn't Sony like 2D? I happen to love Mega Man 8. What happened to Mega Man Battle and Chase? Dante Rouser. Steve, I personally love RPGs, so you can be sure it's one genre that won't be left behind. Be sure to check out our in-depth Final Fantasy VII review and strategy guide in this issue. Don't worry, Dante, Sony doesn't hate 2D. Look at Castlevania and any of the Street Fighter games. It just wants to make sure only high-quality games are released. I don't believe it has a bias against the game just because it's not 3D. As for Battle and Chase, it's pretty much canned, and trust me when I say it certainly won't be missed. I am glad to finally see a dedicated PlayStation magazine. I am definitely going to subscribe. I'm also very glad to see you have classifieds available to everyone as well. This should prove to be a good way to buy and sell games. Anyway, I was curious as to whether we will see any other games that use the same or similar game engine that Blood Omen Legacy of Kain used. I love the game, and there is nothing else like it, as far as I can see anyhow. Jonathan Earl. Steve. Nice to meet you, Jonathan. Crystal Dynamics does not have plans to use the Blood Omen engine for any other titles right now. But if you're into the whole dark and macabre genre of games, then you might want to be on the lookout for Akuji the Heartless. Crystal hasn't released much info about it yet, but it looks to have some of the elements that made Blood Omen such a unique and successful title. Best of luck on your new publication. Okay, I've heard talk of a Tomb Raider supplemental game, not Tomb Raider 2, but a disc that is supposedly titled Unfinished Business, that takes place at the end of the first game. Is there any truth to the speculation? Tomb Raider was my favorite title last year, and anything loosely Lara-related makes me stand up and take notice. Let me know, please. And again, good luck with PSM. Yelp passes. Steve, you're right about the add-on disc for Tomb Raider, but it will only be available for the PC. The title is indeed Unfinished Business. It will feature 2 new missions, and hopefully it will tide you Lara Crazy Gamers over until this November, when Tomb Raider 2 gets released. Was there really an expansion for Tomb Raider 1 on the PC only? That's weird. Okay, first Tomb Raider. Released versions. Game was first released. PlayStation on MS-DOS. Oh, yeah. Unfinished Business was intended as an alternate, more difficult finale to the game, featuring more mutant enemies and a focus on complex platforming. Due to licensing issues, several later re-releases excluded the gold content. Oh. Well, I had no idea. Okay. Moving on. I would really like to see Namco release an action fighting game title. Just imagine taking the role of Nina Williams and infiltrating the Mishima Empire to assassinate Heihachi. Or maybe Lei Wulong. With his arsenal of spinning kicks, he could easily take on several opponents at once. Does Namco have any plans for a sequel to Cell Blade? Thomas Pritchard. Steve. Namco doesn't have any plans for an action fighting game right now, but Midway does. Titled MK Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, it takes the fighting elements established in the Mortal Kombat series and puts them into a side-scrolling action game. Look for Mythologies to be released in the 4th quarter of 1997. As for a Soul Blade sequel, Namco hasn't revealed anything yet, but I'm betting on an arcade release early next year. Sims 12 board, anyone? Was probably 2 years away for the Soul Calibur release on Dreamcast, I would think. I received a card in the mail for a free subscription to your magazine. However, I would like to know if there are any strings attached. Steve. As with all of Imagine's magazines, there are no catches. Send in the card and check out the free issues. If you don't like the mag, simply return the bill with cancel written on it. We'll take care of the rest. Talking back, your input is critical. Keep it coming. I was quite pleased to see that Imagine is going to begin publishing a PlayStation-only print magazine. As a subscriber to Next Generation for the last couple of years, I've really enjoyed the adult approach to gaming, as well as the hard-hitting articles and interviews that the magazine has to offer. I just have a few questions to you. What will be the editorial philosophy of PSM? What age group will we be trying to reach? I am 27 years old, married, and have 2 kids, so my gaming time is limited, and therefore precious. That makes me a very picky game consumer. NG has always been a great help in choosing software, as well as PSX Power. A PlayStation-only magazine with a maturity level of NG would be ideal for me, and look forward to reading your reply. John Barnes. I noticed there are a lot of people coming to your mag from UGP magazine. Are we to expect that weird humor and letter responses that make UGP so cool? Ryan Monty. Chris. Whoa, you guys sure have lots of questions about our new mag. As you can see for yourself, with this issue, we're taking a slightly more adult approach, but we're still looking to be a bit more lively than NG. At the other extreme, we're also not going to be quite as insane as UGP. Instead, we're hoping to bring out our own unique personality. Be sure to write us back after a few issues and let us know what you think. As I mentioned at the beginning, they will ultimately skew a little more adult because they realize that the PlayStation has a slightly different audience than the old consoles. Dear PSM, I just wanted to say good luck to you contributing to this magazine. I am a subscriber to Ultra Game Players, which I think is a very good magazine, but I am also glad that the magazine will be totally devoted to the Sony PlayStation. With PSM, I can look forward to more reviews, previews, and codes for the PlayStation. This is great! I will definitely get the first issue in August, and will then mail in my subscription. What can I say? It's about time for a magazine like this, considering the popularity and adult gamer-oriented nature of the PlayStation. Well, that's about it. I know it is difficult to begin a new magazine, but I have confidence in PSM will be a success. Until August, my friends. Al Messina Jr. Steve, thanks for the encouraging words. You can rest assured that PSM will strive to be the best PlayStation magazine on the market. Top this. Are you good enough to take the PSM challenge? We've put together 3 tests of skills. If you can prove you got what it takes to rise above the rest, you can win cool prizes and see your name in the lights. It's Ace Combat 2. Get all the merit badges. Sending a photo of it, of course. To get some PSM gear and a shiny new flight stick. Final Fantasy 7. If you... $27 hours for disc 1? That seems long, but I guess the game is just out. And they're offering a trick one-handed RPG control pad. That seems like a bad prize. Then if you were to play Felony 1179 for some reason, you could get a wheel controller and PSM gear. But it's a cool idea. Ask Sony. Dear Sony, wasn't Tobal 2 coming to the US? The game is great, much better than even the first one. Scott Spencer. Squaresoft Incorporated announced in April 1997 that Tobal 2 would not be released in either North America or Europe. The following is Square's official statement. Tobal 2, which was released in Japan in late April 1997, is not coming out in the US. Sony Computer Entertainment America has been strongly requesting us to reconsider this, but unfortunately we cannot meet their expectations due to development issues. Tobal 2 has been majorly upgraded from Tobal number 1 with regards to number of characters, game system, and so on. Because of these vast gameplay additions, it turned out to complicate the localization process. The result is that a huge technology improvement needs to be made, and an enormous amount of time needs to be spent on the process that we cannot afford right now. Also, the development schedule of Dream Factory's next title has been fixed, and the intertwine between that has accelerated the decision as well. Did Tobal 2 ever come out? And what was Dream Factory doing? Tobal 2 stayed Japan side. Dream Factory, I guess, was working on air guides at this time. Yeah. did the studio fold? Because I don't see any games past, like, 2016. Well, if he doesn't tell me, I probably won't know, but... Yeah, they did Turbo 1 and 2, Air Guides, The Bouncer, a bunch of other games for PlayStation 2. And then they also work on some of the Naruto games for Nintendo DS. Dear Sony, I am just about as loyal a PlayStation supporter can be. I've had my PS since October 1995. I have over 40 games, and I have stuck by Sony and its PlayStation because I believe it's easily the best system on the market. However, this brings me to the point of my letter. Two things that upset me about Sony are, number one, the fact that Sony feels that it must decide for me what games I want to play. I'm very upset about the cancellation of Mega Man Battle & Chase and Mega Man X4. I am sick of Sony's no 2D rule, as I am sure most PlayStation owners are. We have missed several games because of this, and I don't want to miss any more. I know 3D graphics are nice, but platform games are still very popular, and this egotistical no 2D rule has got to go. 2. I am sick of censorship in video games. If Sony censors Final Fantasy VII, then the game won't have the same feel that makes it the best RPG of all time. Bro, you haven't even played it. Like, chill. Not just children own PlayStations, and as older folk, I'm 21, need things in games that relate to us. I was surprised that the infamous shit word made it into Vandal Hearts, but this is my point. Whenever a game has an M logo on the front, no one under 17 can buy it anyway. Not quite true, because people don't care to check that, but... In conclusion, give us our 2D games back and don't censor the words and content within reason of another company's hard work and creativity. Thank you for your time. Dave Houligard. 1. First, let me assure you that here at Sony Computer Entertainment America do not have a no 2D rule when it comes to evaluating content for the PlayStation. Our goal is to do everything possible to ensure that PlayStation games are unique, entertaining, immersive, and have high-quality sounding graphics, taking full advantage of the console's advanced capabilities. In fact, the breadth and depth of the software available for the PlayStation only benefits the consumer by offering the best games representing a variety of genres. This is just PR speak. Yeah, I don't know if it's worth it to read these letters. Did they just, like, forward these letters to Sony PR or something? But... oh, it looks like this letter was signed by Phil Harrison himself. Like, we work very closely with our partners to ensure the best possible games are released in North America. Sometimes that means we have to say no, but generally it is a reallocation of development resources to something even cooler for PlayStation. Phil Harrison, Vice President, Third Party Relations. Yeah, it's not worth it to just read PR speak out of this. That's fine. We're gonna move on. And I guess this actually ends the magazine. There's classified ads. Is trying to buy or trade for Tiger Shark, Brown Force, Power Slave, Grid Runner, Tillball Number 1 with Final Fantasy VII Demo, and or Thunderstrike 2. Please email me with prices. This guy just sells PSX games for sale or trade. Someone's selling NFL Game Day 97 for $23 plus shipping. Coming next month to PSM. Symphony of the Night, Complete Walkthrough Strategy Guide. Complete Guide to PlayStation Peripherals. Final Fantasy VII Strategy Guide, Discs 2 and 3. Parappa the Rapper finally hits the US. Major coverage of big October games like Blasto, Face Off 98, Armored Core, G Police, Batman and Robin, Game Day 98, Porsche Challenge, Bushido Blade, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and tons more. See you next month. This was a pretty good first issue. Shorter. I don't know if it's gonna be a pattern, but definitely shorter than our PlayStation. No, not PlayStation. PC Gamer read-throughs and our Computer Gaming World read-throughs. I wonder if it was just like the magazine itself was not as dense because it was targeted at a younger audience. Curious to see what the official magazine is going to look like in comparison. Well, in the meantime, that's going to do it for this episode of Required Reading. Next time we will check out. So let's go back to the review. We will check out 5 games over 2 weeks. We're gonna check out Final Fantasy VII because it's been reviewed, so we need to check it out for praxis. But we know what this game is. This is Hercules. Not because it's good, because I have very much nostalgia for it, because I always saw it and was tempted by it, but never actually played it. Resident Evil Director's Cut, another solid one. Ace Combat, and I'm curious about this Machine Hunter game. And also Ace Combat 2. So we're going to check these 5 over the course of 2 episodes, after which we will get back to the reading and start our official PlayStation Magazine number 1, dated October 1997. That's going to be all of it for us today. So this is Nick, signing off, reminding everyone to let's keep retro playing together.